it's not a smart idea to start a business. It just is not. It's stupid, especially if you don't have money.
Yeah.
And if you don't have experience. Like we had the experience, we had the network. It made sense and it was going to work, but there's those things you just don't see.
On today's episode of the Grab Matters podcast, we welcome on a very special guest, Keith Lidberg. Keith Lidberg is a former professional wakeboarder who now lives here in Orlando, but he grew up in the Midwest of America in Minnesota, where he started riding boat initially. And then when he moved down here, he got really into rail riding and some cable riding as well. We talk about the early days of his career, how he bounced around from several different board brands throughout his career, from Joyride, Double Up, Gator Boards to J-Star. And then eventually what led him to, having some involvement with Control Wakeboards and kind of what happened with Control, how it got started. We're also talking some videos. So he had a really good part in Transgression, which I highly recommend everyone watches. But there's some clips in that are definitely ahead of their time. We kind of break some of that down. We also talk about the Carnival and how that still is a little bit of a salty memory for him when it comes to the format of the contest and how close he was to winning. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is the best way to do so. Thank you to all the Patreon members. Your guys' support really is what helps keep this podcast going. So thank you so much. If you are interested in supporting the podcast, supporting the brands that also support this show is huge. That helps a ton, as well as just sharing it. If you like an episode, make sure you guys share it if you're interested in doing that. So without further ado, let's get into this episode of the Grab Matters podcast.
I approve waterboarding. They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Air railings.
A new dimension.
I say let's do it. Let's dive into another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Keith Lidberg. How's it going?
Great.
Great to have you on, dude. This is I'm pretty stoked for this one. So I usually start off with a couple quick questions. Number one, wake pants, yes or no?
You asked Chase that too.
I ask everybody. So
Oh, you do?
Yeah, every single person comes on.
That shows I need to get my shit together and start watching your podcast. You know what? 1997, 98, maybe 99. Who knows? I don't have a good memory, but I would have told you they're good because I had a pair.
Okay, so you did rock a pair back then.
I rocked a pair. I rocked a pair in INT contests, and I was pretty sick. Doing like 4 inverts and whatever. But no, like I just listen to Chase's, so I'm with him. They're not functional.
Fair.
I like to I'd probably rock them today, but I wouldn't be very serious.
Well, how serious can you be? You know what I mean? So
it depends on the fabric. Like Jet Pilot had some pretty dope.
I'd love to get my hands on a pair of the Jet Pilot ones because I've heard good things, but I've never felt the fabric.
Dude,
that's huge.
You could rock those for like 5 years and they'd still look brand new.
Dang. All right, let's go favorite grab.
Oh man, that's a good one. I think. Again, it's a timeline thing. I don't know. Today,
Let's say in your career, like in the thick of it, what was your favorite one to do?
I mean, my go-to was always the ends of the board, like nose, tail, because you could poke them out and do that. But then I went through seasons, so I got into middle of the board, meatball style, and I think your go-to is probably mute.
Mute? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Not a lot of mutes, I feel like, coming in. But
With extra, not just...
a little extra sauce on it.
Yeah.
Can't go stink bug style on it.
No.
We got a question from Henshaw. He's wondering how much your phone bill was in France for the indoor Fise.
So we were going right for the memories. So a little context to that was for the kids that don't know, there were some really adventurous events over in Europe, and we would get invited to these contests where they would fly us out and do these like indoor crazy winch things that were just like miserable for us to ride, but they were fun, and we made money, and they paid us to go out there. So long answer to your question is, I think it's appropriate for the listeners. That was an event where we didn't see the sun for 4 days. Myself, Kevin and Mike Ennin were on that
Yeah,
one.
he did say that was the crew.
Yeah. So we got to Paris in the Sky Lounge. We started boozing on the Heinies.
On the way there?
On the way there.
Okay.
Got to, I think it was Montpellier. And night, so it was end of day. Our rooms weren't ready, started drinking, and we sent it. And every day we woke up was a new surprise, but it was already nighttime by the time we woke up because we went to bed at sunrise. So we never actually saw the sun that whole entire trip. And the events were at night in a venue, indoor. And yeah, I woke up with, back then we had flip phones. There wasn't iPhones back then. So it was a big deal to have your phone on in Europe, you know, from the US. I think it was like singular wireless back then. And I got like a notification. I don't even know when my phone was on, you know, who was I going to talk to? I don't know if this is a real memory or if we were just that hungover, but, you know, I woke up. I think those guys were still pulling it together in the main room. I was in the bathroom, like on the phone with Singular, and I don't know what they'll tell you, but I just remember being like, "What the?" I think I had like a $3,000 or $4,000 bill because it ran minutes because it was roaming the entire time.
Yeah.
So I must have got drunk and drunk text, you know, who knows at the time, you know. Like,
and then it's open and just.
Yeah, never shut it off. And, you know, so, yeah, I think I was able to get home and negotiate. Like, I think I paid $1,000 to get my phone turned back
What was
on.
do you remember, did you win the contest? What was the purse? Did that cover it at all, at least a little bit?
I don't know who won, honestly. We didn't take it very serious, so my apologies to whoever the organizer was. I couldn't honestly tell you who it was. They were great people, you know. And
I mean, it sounds like a good time.
We were dipshits, but I don't know. Maybe I won, maybe Kev, Mike. We all got somewhere up there, and you know, I think we only spent maybe a total of 2 hours actually at the event site in 3 days. You know, so again, apologies. We were not the most professional, but we sure did send it.
I mean, it sounds like a heck of a time for sure.
Yeah.
3-4K, that's up there.
Yeah.
That's not one you want to swallow.
No.
Coming back to the States.
No. As an adult now, I'm going to be teaching my kids about being responsible.
Yeah, get that SIM card if you're going over. I guess you got Wi-Fi now, so it doesn't matter. But
yeah.
So, I mean, we'll get into your career and, you know, how you got into wakeboarding, all that stuff. But I'm curious what you're doing now. So post wakeboard career, what's Keith Lidberg up to?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a long story, but I left wakeboarding, I think, early 30s. Kind of at the end, I was, you know, we had a board company, and that had some issues.
We'll get into that.
Okay, cool.
Later,
yeah, so I did like a little detour. I got with a good buddy of mine who was around in the early days, who wakeboarded and was kind of with my people from back then that got me into this world. But he was a business consultant, so I went and did that, and then did that for I think 6 years. Got a real life MBA, and then kind of decided to go a different route. We have a construction background. I paired up with Kevin, and we did a business there for a while, and we're just wrapping that up. We got ourselves in a little bit of trouble, so you know, I could. Can
we dive into that a little bit,
well,
or what's?
No, I mean we're ambitious guys, right? We've both been really successful, and we've done well for ourselves, and we both have, like, you know, good construction backgrounds. So we built a company and learned like how to bootstrap from zero and all those struggles. And then when I say we got ambitious, we got into some big
projects,
big contractor, like, you know, really we should be a $20-50 million company to take on work like we did. And we got into military or government stuff, and we got hooked. We just
biting off a lot.
We got smoked. So we all, you know, we're still dealing with the PTSD of that, you know.
I mean, but of all the problems to have, that's not a bad one.
I mean,
you
come out pretty wise. You
Yeah.
know, we got pretty beat up, and a lot of parallels to the journey in wakeboarding, right? So, yeah, today, you know, I'm in the pool and outdoor business. I kind of stayed in that lane. So
Yeah.
I do commercial and residential outdoor experiences, and pools and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think he's doing like remodels and some other projects. So we still overlap a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm always curious just, you know, after, I mean, and I guess we can kind of talk about the progression of being a rider to what you do afterwards, but I was just curious
yeah.
what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so mainly a dad and construction and just trying to pay the bills in this crazy world we're in.
True that. How often do you ride these days?
I don't.
So the follow-up question is, when was the last time you rode a wakeboard?
Somebody out there, if they hear this, is going to probably correct me, but the last time I got a little bit of, we tried to get in, like a Monday Club down over there in Nona there for a brief minute, maybe 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
I think I did like 3 mornings. Yeah, like pulled a muscle in my shoulder goofing off. Cause like in your brain, you're still like, when I retired, I was better than I ever was.
Yeah.
I just was in pain and, you know, maybe not physically like able to hold, you know, during those raft days. Right. But, yeah. So in your brain, you're like, yeah, I mean, you still do all this. And I did some of the stuff like, and it was cable, right? So I'm out there doing air tricks, like haven't worked out. I didn't stretch. Like it was a bad idea. I mean, my shoulder still, I think my shoulder hurt for like a year, you know? So I think that's the last time. And the last time I rode boat was, oh man, when the G came out.
Okay. So like 2013, 2014-ish.
Yeah, because
10 years probably about that.
Not to like go off track, but you know, when I stopped riding for Nautiques, I just stopped riding boat.
Yeah.
Basically spent the rest of my life in Europe.
Yeah.
in Asia. So the G came out and went and rode with, you know, Danny and Watson and all those guys. And, you know, that's when I was like, what is this? Like, this is nuts. So,
yeah, if you're talking about something that totally changed.
Yeah,
boat riding.
Going from like a 230, a 210 Mastercraft, like
different
road bump to like
a little quarter pipe action,
snowboard booter to whatever these kids ride today. You know, they're hitting, you know, full on doors, like
full on doors. I love it.
So yeah, that's what's that like. G came out.
I want to say 2013. I'm sure someone can fact check that, but it was that
at least 10 years ago.
It was a decade ago.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
yeah. I think a lot of the cable riding is one of those. I don't know as much boat riding. It's probably the same, but like if you dive back into cable riding after taking, I don't know, a few weeks off, even you think like, okay, I can do the same stuff. It's like, no, your muscles are gone. Like they're not what they were. And if you just dive right into it, you're going to have probably some problems.
Oh, dude, I hit a kicker and I was like, what was that? I felt like a car crash when I landed. I'm like,
well, if you're a Nona, that's probably an XL kicker. So that thing's putting you to the moon.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
All right. I was curious on that. So I think we, let's bring it back to Minnesota. So you grew up in Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of run through not even wakeboarding, but like early days of sports. So were you into snowboarding, skating, water skiing, wakeboarding? Like how's that all?
Yeah. So I was a hockey player. That was what I did full time. We weren't very well off, which I mean, not that a lot of people were, but so we had like I had two lifestyles because my parents were divorced. So my dad was like, you know, they grew up water skiing, the whole deal, fishing, all that kind of stuff.
Lake life stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So as a young kid, we kind of had split lives. So I played hockey like formally in the school life and being a kid. And then, you know, during the summers we fished and water skied and learned how to do that and tubed and all that stuff. And so that was pretty much it. And then, you know, in the transition to teenage years was like, I was too small to be like I was a really good player for for what I was, but I wasn't gonna. I was too small to like
Uh,
keep it going. Right?
Nothing you could do about that too.
Yeah. So, and I was shy, and I didn't like being a part of a team back then. It was kind of a bummer. But so I gravitated towards the wakeboard thing and snowboarding. Well, skiing and then snowboarding.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I landed a backflip on a pair of skis, like in this. People from up there will know, like Wild Mountain.
Oh yeah, Wild Mountain. Yeah.
So there was moguls, and I think it snowed like 6 inches. So we went over there and like hawked off of the moguls and stuck a backflip. And then I was the guy in the park doing just backflips off of every jump there was, and thought that was rad. And then I think I transitioned to snow when a wakeboard magazine came out, and they had like a few of the guys, like Murray and a bunch of guys. They actually printed them in a wakeboard magazine doing snowboard tricks. So
Like
obviously
Murray and them.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Like you did like a tantrum to blind, I don't know what it's called in snowboarding.
The back rodeo, probably.
Yeah. So that's how brief I was in snowboarding, and I just did rail stuff in snowboarding.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know what the tricks are freaking called. I love it. I love watching it, but
Yeah, fair.
yeah.
Okay, so snowboarding a little bit, and then let's kind of do the wakeboarding. So you said you didn't live on a lake, right? Growing up. So how do you get into getting into wakeboarding on the lake?
Well, my dad had kind of a wild ride. He was, but we ended up way up north, a place called Lake Vermilion, just north of Cook, Minnesota, which is like big, like way up there. Like you drive on a paved road, and then it goes to a dirt road, and then you're at a cabin. So at the time we had some family up there, and so they were in the boat industry, so we grew up like tubing and fishing and water skiing, and they ended up living up there, so I'd go up there in the summers and work to basically pay to play hockey in the winter. So
Okay.
I'd work all summer so I could pay for my hockey. I
don't know back then, but it's definitely not cheap now.
Yeah,
so
we
probably
couldn't
not cheap
afford
then,
it, so that's what I would do. Is like as soon as I was 13, I was doing that. And then quick story, I learned how to barefoot behind like a 35 horse tiller, and it was basically like old school, like dads back then were like get in the water and figure it out.
Yeah.
So put me on a ski, took the front boot off, and just I think we were in the lake for 2 hours. He wouldn't let me get in the boat till I did it. So I was a little 12-year-old, like 10-year-old, 11-year-old. I don't remember. I think I was maybe 11, crying, and then finally did it. Long line, step off and went, I don't know, 100 feet, and then checked that box. And then I think I got into wakeboarding like right after that.
Okay.
And then didn't barefoot again until I came back to Florida.
That's pretty wild. First, like barefooting's the first.
Yeah.
I mean, you go with the hardest one, I guess. Everything else is
That's what those guys
slower and
did.
easier.
Like those, back then, our parents, they would go out in tennis shoes and slide off of the grass into the lake, and they'd all just see who could go the farthest, right?
That's sick.
So that's how I was introduced to water sports. Was like figure it out. I think I was 3 when my uncle put me on his skis or something. I just held on to his knees,
Yeah.
So yeah, the family was into it, like his side, and that's kind of we just were lake life, cabin life.
I mean, that's like typical Midwest, like at the second place that you drive, who knows how far to on that dirt road. And then,
yeah, I mean, that was a 4-hour from the cities,
yeah,
so, but those were cool. That was a good memories.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat a Midwest summer, right?
No.
Unbeatable.
Get me back there.
Especially now we're recording this in August and it's hot.
It's miserable.
She's hot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's talk about the first sport. Cause you said you were working when we were talking earlier, you said you were working at like a bait and tackle kind of little shop up there.
Yeah. So the family, we had this like, it was called Uncle Kenny's, but it was one of these like straight out of a one of those funny horror movies, from the 80s. It's kind of one of those
the
places.
name too alone, Uncle Kenny's.
Yeah. So you pull into this little town, and we were like the last place before it transitions to dirt road. And so we had like one gas pump up there, and then a little general store, a bait shop, and an ice cream deal. And so I think when I was legally allowed, I was 13. I'd work the shop. I'd have to get up early and run that, and then we would get like I said, the Bart's catalog and thumb through that. And I swear, and don't quote me, I swear we were watching, Parks, similar age, I think the same age, on ESPN2, Darren and Murray, like doing it. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I saved up and bought a board out of, I think it was Overton's or Bart's, I can't remember. The Hyperlight Baff, Badass Flying Fish, which was, about this skinny. And I was so pumped.
That was the first deck, first board?
Yeah. No, I'm wrong. That was my first.
Good thing I didn't quote you on that one.
Holy cow, yeah. No, I told you I had a lot of concussions, thanks to the cable. O'Brien Sparky was the first one.
Okay.
And then the binding screw came out, and that was just, on one day. And then it was the next summer I bought the bath.
Gotcha,
so,
okay.
My bad, sorry.
Well, good thing I didn't quote you, so we got it fact-checked immediately. That's we love that. Okay, so, I mean, you're young. You're in the Midwest, though, which is, speaking from experience, you can't get that much time on the water, especially if you're going to a second home or whatever, cottage cabin, whatever.
Yeah.
So how does the next, I guess 8 years of your life until you graduate high school regarding wakeboarding, how's that progression kind of continue?
Yeah. So, we did that for a couple summers, and then I don't remember what happened. That place ended up selling. Probably getting into high school age, we would, I think around 15, 16, I got a job at a place called Hallberg Marine. They're still there. They're like the largest boat dealer in Minnesota. Like traditional, like pontoons, fishing boats, aluminum, like that, like
the high volume boats.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they had a little ski shop. So I got a job working in parts, and because I would wakeboard, we would, I kind of ran the shop. I don't know. I use that word loosely.
Tubes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Selling,
So because of that, that's where I had access to like videos and like new boards and stuff. And so I was just like, part-time 16-year-old, 15-year-old kid doing that job. And there were older kids that were, I'm guessing 18 to 21 range, which at that age, that's a big gap.
Yeah.
That worked in rigging. So they would, somebody buys a new boat, they would set it all up and get people set up. So one of them had a Malibu F3 on Forest Lake. This is where this is. It's just north of the cities. So we would work, get off, and up there it's dark till freaking 10 or something. So we'd go straight from work to his family's place, and we would watch, I don't know, I think My House back then. Literally watch like the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then go in the boat and just we'd ride until you couldn't see the boat,
Yeah.
And we did that till I think that was for like 2 summers.
So you had a good crew riding a lot. Everybody was into it on the same kind of,
there was
the same page, on the same level.
Yeah, up there. And I think we got introduced to INT, and then that's where I found out there was an actual scene that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And there was like a group of kids from like Minnetonka area, the south side, and that's where I forget the Midwest water sports and some of those places are. And met those kids, and I was like, whoa. There was some I feel terrible, I don't remember his name, but there was a kid, like, he still shreds up there, I'm told. He was like the first kid doing off-axis spins, and he would do his run, and we were all like, what is this? Like, we're still Minnesota, like we haven't been here yet. And so I ended up leaving there and got a job at Midwest Water Sports, and then I got kind of hooked up with a couple buddies, a buddy Adam and mine, and then by chance ended up in Florida. It was never part of a plan. So.
Okay, we'll dive into Florida in a little bit, but I think it's time we dive into the LF'n Wheel of Questions presented by Liquid Fort.
The LF'n wheel of questions.
Okay, let's go.
So if you can go ahead and grab that down, I know it's up there, but
Okay.
should be able to pop down, no problem. So Liquid Force likes to make wakeboarding fun, so let's make this podcast a little bit more fun by spinning the LF'n wheel of questions. So we got, you're going to give it a spin, and then it's either going to have a question or a prompt to kind of guide you to what to do. So go ahead and give that a big spin, and
Let's do this.
we'll see what we get.
Worst trend then versus now.
So I guess now, since you don't wakeboard, recently.
Oh, no, I've got an opinion about now.
Oh, love it. This is good. This is good. Okay, well, so we'll start.
I think it's still a thing now.
Well, it sounds like I think it's going to be a good thing. So let's go then first. So worst trend.
I love all the new kids or whoever they are.
You don't have to preface this with an apology. We don't need that.
Get the skinny stance and the freaking kitchen table size boards out of here. You cannot tell me you ride well on that board. That's an old guy's opinion, right?
So how big's too big?
I don't even know, but I've seen, like I said, I don't follow it. I don't see what's on, but every now and then, when I'm sitting in bed, at 8:00, scrolling social media, I'll see some of these things, and I'm just like, I did things, where I was like, I want to be different. Like, you're not different. Just do yourself a favor. It's not better for you. It's not making you ride better. You're cool. You're special, but
That's a take.
your heels shouldn't touch on your wakeboard.
So we're talking skinny. You don't like.
No.
So, okay. I ride shoulder width, maybe a little bit wider than shoulder width.
Yeah,
Is that skinny to you?
No, that's normal.
So we're talking.
Yeah, these dudes who are like, no offense.
Unpractically skinny is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's healthy, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to end up with arthritis in your knees, hopefully, like I have. So,
Knock on wood. Just trying to subtly do it.
worse, but old trend.
Yeah, let's see the old trend.
What were the old trends? I mean, I don't know. You're gonna have to help me out. I don't know what was like.
I mean, trends back then. I guess I don't know.
We lived through a bunch.
Could be
of them.
cable. It could be boat. Could be industry stuff you didn't like seeing. It was like, oh man, we're pushing this product. I don't think it's really good.
This is probably old today, but it was considered new, and we're guilty of doing it from when I had control. I was a part of Control Wakeboards, but camber in wakeboarding.
Yeah.
Like, really?
That's
Like that? No, that was a terrible. I don't. Do they still have it? Do they
No,
still do it?
I don't think anybody is doing anything with camber.
because science, right? Like,
Doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't
The
work.
resistance of the water and
Yeah,
but I mean,
and hats off to the poor bastards.
when I talked to Shota though, and he might have been lying to me. Shota Tezuka, who rode that camber board for a little bit, he said he didn't hate it. He said he doesn't even ride for Ronix anymore though. He's on O'Brien now, so I don't know if he could just be a nice guy, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean,
I never rode one, so I guess I can't.
on boat, like, you had to be so precise, and it was such a specific. I mean, I don't know how long he rides, but I would imagine you have to ride to actually enjoy that board on a wake to wake type deal. I don't know, 45 feet.
45 feet back is where you have to.
That's what I would think. Like, so you're always landing right on the other wake because you're just, that's like the board version of like riding a 210 in 2001.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my But these are just opinions.
Those are good takes. I love those. I ride a big wakeboard with I guess not skinny stance because it's a little bit shoulder width out, but I ride a bigger board. I'm a big guy though.
You're tall, right?
Yeah. You gonna give me a pass?
Yeah. I mean, I don't
need
care.
approval from Keith Lidberg. To
Nobody
ride
needs
fucking
my
board.
approval. Nobody needs.
I like those. Those are two good takes though. I was looking
Listen.
for some good ones, and those are good ones.
Yeah.
So let's. We got a LF'n wild card. So we got a little bonus question from the guys at Liquid Force, and they're wondering if you had any pre-comp or pre-ride rituals or things you would do, either before you go ride or a big contest that were, I don't know, maybe different.
Yeah. I mean, I think the unfortunate part about the contest when I was there, it was, everybody's just, we were just showing up and trying to do our thing. And there was like super serious guys. There was like just there to be a part of it. And then I just was on either side of the fence, depending on, what season it was. But When I was taking it serious, I think it was the pre-ritual was just like not watching whoever was riding and not like trying to get out of even thinking about what I was doing.
Interesting.
So it was all preparation. So I would actually, air quotes, train for when I was doing contests. I would know my 3 passes. I have strong opinions about contests and like how they should be ridden and how they should look. So probably to my fault. And, in the later years, it was how can I just not worry about what everybody else is doing? Because it doesn't matter, right? It's a subjective sport. I practice this way. I'm going to go do that. And,
lay my cards on the table and see where they.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into strategy. I'll ride, take it easy. Like, no, I had a, pre-qual, semis and a finals run. And as long as I made it through, I was going to do it. I wasn't there to, pull this trick off or do anything so that's it. Maybe a little meditation, but we tried that. And that's just like, I'm not an Olympic athlete. This isn't that serious.
So doing your own thing though, it's kind of like just stay in my lane, do my thing. And
I would like get checked in and try to leave the site.
Okay.
I would do stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to hang around and talk about wakeboarding with everybody and like, whoa, like we're not even seeing the best of what these guys are doing anyway. So what are we doing? Like, we'll hang out at the bar later. Like, we don't need to do this.
True. At the post ride, we'll talk about it.
That was my approach anyway.
So you said something earlier though. You said you have opinions on how contests should be ridden. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you could talk to guys. They'll go back to the later years, but yeah, I had strong opinions about contests, and I didn't like the way they were run. I didn't like the way they were judged.
Continue. I
think that in my experience, and I'm digging deep into, concussion, Keith's brain, but, it came a long way, it progressed. And, I think, like I said, I listened to Chase's podcast and he touched on some of their, those guys, they definitely push the boundaries, like in the like heyday of media and all that stuff. But I've shared similar opinions, like, the way we had to, you'd get beat by a guy because he just did an extra back row in his run because he could sneak it in. Like that was bullshit, or a guy who would basically do like the same trick, the same rotation, the same grab on like 3 tricks in their pass. And I even still see it today. I just like, I think we need to do better. Or, when I was involved, I wanted us to do less tricks, grab your board, less is more, it's a subjective deal. Like, you want to systemize it a little bit so that, it's
people know what they're getting into.
Right. Yeah. Right. You can't really judge like a big backside 180 into the flats against like a nose grab crow 7. That's not even the same deal. Yeah. They're both, I'm just cherry picking things I've seen, but they're both unique and awesome. And I know, it's a struggle for the audience and getting people to understand what's happening. But, I think ultimately they got lazy and just, status quo. And you had athletes who were just going to be outspoken because they were controlling the podium. So they're going to just keep pushing for what they want, which isn't necessarily the benefit of like
the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of guys who had an opinion of, like, I think that leaned my way, or in the same train of thought. We went off of snowboarding, we went off of skateboarding, and how they ran events. And those guys were like, I mentioned it earlier just by chance, but they didn't want to be a part of the Olympics. They don't want to be a part of this like point system, and like who's going to go out there be the most rad that day. Doesn't necessarily mean you're the best rider in the world and whatever. Yeah. Like that's less important. It's like, who's going to go out there and throw it down and not just do the same frickin' 5 to 8 tricks the whole weekend, because that's just what they do. Yeah. So, and hey, listen, I played the game, like, cause you had to get paid.
Dude, that's, keep the lights on.
And I think that's why I had such a strong opinion, cause I didn't like playing that game. Yeah. It was not fun.
That's it. That's an interesting perspective, because contests are weird in subjective sports, especially board sports, where it's like
it's hard.
You're trying to find the best person that day, who's best at riding their wakeboard or snowboard or whatever. So like to do that, is it just who does the hardest tricks? who does it that looks the best,
Right.
who has the most variety.
Yeah.
So it's all these weird things that you're trying to pull together subjectively, where it's like,
Yeah. And I don't think anybody had, like, don't get me wrong, like, nobody who was running events or putting this together had, like, it's not like they were trying to be.
yeah, they're not,
Yeah.
dog on one specific
No,
person. It's like,
no, but like, that's probably just contests in this type of place, right? Like, there's no perfect way to do it, right?
and everyone's gonna complain too. That's the
Yeah,
because it's judged. Like
it's judged, and then like there were events where like we actually changed how it was going to get judged. Like I was involved, and then you do well at the event, and it's like, well, you wrote the rules, like
fair.
it's like, well, okay, but like everybody knew about
Everybody
it.
knew the
for
rules,
months,
yeah.
like, and it actually complements your riding style. You just didn't have a good day, but it's. I'm not going to say there's no right answer, but
yeah. Well, and that's also, I mean, we can move on from this in a little bit, but like that's also just weird when it comes to board sports because a lot of people that get into board sports, at least in my opinion, don't get into it for the competitive reasons. They get into it because self-expression, creativity, it's fun, hang out with community, like
friends.
It's all these things except
that.
competition.
But then you want to do it for a living.
You have to do the competition because
Right.
like, that's where you get paid.
That's where you get paid.
For most sports. Like there are some free riders who never even have to touch, Trevor Mowers and stuff. But
we never really got through there, I think. So.
Well, it never got big enough where you can have these skaters who don't even laugh at contests, and snowboarders, but like we just never got quite big enough.
We wanted it.
Yeah, it would have been wish in one hand.
We wanted it.
All right, so let's talk moving to Florida. We can go ahead and put that LF'n Wheel of Questions back. So thank you to Liquid Force for that.
We're giving them all that screen time right there.
Hey, they deserved it right there, dude. That was a good prompt on the worst trend.
Send me board, guys.
That was a good one. Come on. I'll get you bored. We get you set up, dude. If you want to ride, okay. I got a 165. You want to ride that?
Dude, it's probably going to be good for me.
I think you would. You wouldn't have any back problems or shoulder problems. You'd have
just put a board on on a paddle, a sup or something.
Yeah, there you go.
It's probably
Surface
safe
area
for
is
me.
kings, dude. That's king. That's what we want. Yeah. So let's talk diving into Florida or moving to Florida. So you said it was kind of weird how it happened or whatever. Just
yeah, I mean, I had saved up and came to the wakeboard camp. I think Kyle Schmidt and Glenn Fletcher were coaches there back then. I was in Claremont, and Claremont was like country. I think I was a senior in high school or just maybe I was 19. I can't honestly tell you, but somehow I talked my mom into letting me come down here, and I learned like tons and tons of tricks in a week. So I had like a summer after high school. I was like trying to do community college and stuff, but I basically just rode and girl I dated at the time, I was supposed to go to Arizona and she was California, and she found UCF and was like, hey, it's more affordable with the college and we don't have to break up. And I was like, okay. So we packed up the F1 or Ford Ranger 5-speed.
that thing had to be tiny back then.
Oh, dude.
Old Ford Ranger.
Little mattress on the top, flapping in the wind. And we drove to Florida, and just struggling 20-year-old. Like, I don't know how kids do it nowadays, but, worked odd jobs and rode with the cable because I didn't have anybody to ride boat with.
Yeah.
That was like, yeah.
So let's talk cable, get into cable, because you hadn't seen one, I'm assuming, up until this point. You get down here.
No, we were aware of it, right?
Yeah.
But it was the easy win because it was semi-affordable. I think it was like $17 or something. You could ride for an hour or 2 hours. And so we'd save our money and come ride as much as we could. I'd get off work and go straight to the cable. And then, so that was kind of like what I did. I had to not go to college for a year because of residency. I couldn't afford UCF.
Yeah, you got to get in-state residency, and then it's way cheaper.
Yeah, and that year I got really into, because we just carried my buddy Adam and I moved down here, or he moved in eventually with us, and we would just go to the cable park and we just lived there. And we, so that's how it started. And then I got a little bit into the competitive, like we didn't have contests for cable at that
Because there
time.
wasn't enough.
No,
I mean, right?
You had some like WoW events, the pros,
Yeah.
Parks and Murray and all them were doing. Darren, I think, probably even showed up, and they're doing Indian line and stuff. But we would hear about these kids down Deerfield Beach that were doing crazy stuff, and so we just try it. There was no video, there was no like internet or YouTube or anything back then. So we would just like, oh yeah, this kid's doing this trick, and you're like, what? And, okay, and we just hawk stuff. And I got into air tricks because there were no obstacles, right? There was one rail, and it was like 2 big 8-inch pipes, and you can only do that so many times. And quite frankly, I couldn't afford to buy a new board, so like you're like, that's what got me into air tricks. And I just went like within like I think 2 years, a year or 2 seasons, there was a world event in Europe that I went to, and it was in Dusseldorf or I can't remember.
Yeah,
but like a world cable event, and that was like my introduction to real competition, at least from my perspective at the time. This was before I got into boat. Like, even though I came from riding boat, I didn't know any of those guys down here, and I wasn't like gonna push myself into it. So yeah, we went there. Everybody stayed on site, tents. It was a shit show, and it was cool though.
Shit show in a good way.
Yeah, and that's where I first met the guys from Deerfield Beach, and they had heard of us, right, coming from Orlando, and first guy I met was Donald Shelbrick, and we've been best friends like since.
Yeah,
I think that was 2001. But that's where I was like, okay, I want to do this for real.
Yeah.
And then there's 4 or 5 things that happened after that got us to the projects. And
so I guess before we move on to that,
yeah.
what did people think of cable riding back then? Because you were riding there for a bit. I'm sure there are boat riders that come occasionally to hit the cable, like you said. And
yeah.
But what was the view of cable?
I mean, I think it was like, it wasn't taken serious. It wasn't like that's a thing that is going to be a lane for wakeboarding. I think that was the perception. I think it was clowned on a bit, right? Because you're just dangling from a rope. There weren't like full obstacles and things where you could kind of bring some of the boat stuff to it. And to be fair, like, screw you guys. Like, you guys are doing like ungrab toe 5s, like bonered, like, right? Like at the time, like it wasn't that much cooler, guys, like,
pot calling the kettle black.
Right. I think the only guy I saw doing anything cool was Staker. He had like the front flip. I was just like, what? That's insane. But yeah, I mean, that I don't think it was taken very serious.
I've heard from some of the older school guys when they were comparing it to, they're talking about it back then. They were like, it was just practice. Like it was just looked at as a practice.
Yeah.
Get more handle time, get more water time. So
yeah,
but I mean, you were in it. So
yeah, I mean, that's all I could afford. And again, I didn't know anybody with a boat.
Yeah.
Right. I was from Minnesota, so that's all I could do.
So let's talk projects, because you said there were a couple things that happened after this. Trip to Germany, riding some cable. How's that? You get linked up with projects.
It's a cool story, I think. I'll try to keep it short, but there was an event. Pro Tour was like, we're going to put rails. Like, we're going to have, like, this year, we're going to change it up. Like, one stop's going to be, and I don't know if this is accurate, but, like, I believe it was, like, one stop's going to be rails only. One stop is going to be wake only. One stop might be a combination of both. Maybe they had like a double up only. I can't remember. It was like a year where they were trying stuff. Yeah. And I had by that time I had started going and riding in the boat with Mike Ferraro, who ran a camp out at OW. So he had his Mike's place, and they had the Nautique sponsorship, and they were running riders. So I'd go sit in the boat with Chris Law, who's somebody you should try to find. Phil Sovin when he was in diapers, and Dallas Friday. Those were like his main people, and then every now and then Darren would come out, but those were like who Mike coached. And so I would just ride in the boat and listen, And then whenever I would go ride, I would just try what he was teaching those guys. So that was like a routine I did for a while. And then I started driving the boat and so I kind of came into that like coaching, driving for them. And there was another guy, Marcus from Germany, that they were partners. But long story short, Panakos, and I think this is what I remember. I don't know if it's true, but Panakos was there building the rails, the setup for Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And Mike and Marcus were like, hey, you can make a little extra cash, like go help. So in my memory, they were building like a on-land dock start rail, like you slide and then just slide down to get into the course, and then you'd go hit like an A-frame and some other stuff, like big stuff. And he learned how to do that from building docks down here, because down here they're permanent, So, and I had worked construction with my family and done stuff for years up north, so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go help. And I remember going over there. They're just like, yeah, he's over there. I go over there. I'm from Minnesota. Like, I'm as, Midwest, like, nice. Like, I haven't done anything crazy, besides drink Busch Light and, on the weekends in high school. But, so that's like as crazy as, there were no scenes or anything. I was pretty, white collar button up kind of guy. And there's a guy, he's got long hair. He looks like he hasn't taken a shower in months. He's got this big black shirt, like holes in it, shorts, and he's out there by himself, putting this thing together. And I'm like, hey, man. And so anyway, he's super nice, and, let's, just directing me what he needed help with. And I don't know if it was that day or like throughout that week in prepping, but he just made this comment to me. He's like, hey, man, when are you going to come to the dark side? I was like, what? Like, he's super into Star Wars. Excuse me. And I'm like, who is this dude? Like what a weirdo. And I kind of giggled, right? And I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, he had this place called The Projects, right? I guess with Scott. And I was like, okay, man, like, yeah, right on. Yeah, I'll come out there. But he was like basically recruiting me.
Yeah.
And he was probably just doing it in like like, you should come hang out. Because I was like coaching and stuff, like on a small level, just people who wanted to come and buy a set. And I don't remember how, but just to fast forward, like, there was some stuff with OWC, and they were maybe going to change and partner up and go do stuff out at the projects, which now Travis, he's got his place out there. But so I went with them, and over the course of that experience, I don't know what happened between them, but it didn't work out. So, I think they were just trying to figure out how they were going to partner up and run stuff. But, I was just a kid. I didn't know. So they left, and I stayed. And I don't remember how that happened, but, pretty much Pat was like, you live out here, and you just have to, like, we basically coached and drove, and we could ride as much as we want. And we didn't have to, I don't think we even paid rent. We just worked. Yeah. We just traded. So we took care of the property and coached and helped build rails and stuff. And that's like, so I left that and then stayed there, So that's when I got like, okay, now I'm riding boat. Like, I had a few buddies like Chris Law and stuff that I rode with, but it was really hard until I got to the projects.
Yeah, now you're riding.
I'm riding
whenever you want.
7 days
pretty
a
much.
week.
Yeah. So let's talk sponsors. So when does your first deal with anyone come into play?
Again, like, we're digging deep, so I think I remember this correctly, but we were at the projects. We had our own little scene out there, right? I think this was like when Pointless was blowing up, and those guys were just owning Wakeboard Mag, and so we're still living the life of like Xbox, watching videos, riding anytime we could, and I'm just like, I'm wired different. I'm pretty like ambitious, like hungry. So I was just wanting to ride as much as I could.
Is it true when it was cold, you'd get in the hot tub in between sets?
Yeah.
It was cold and rainy, and you just how often are you riding? How often are we talking?
Oh, at the projects, I'd ride 4 to 6 times, if
in a day.
Yeah. I was like a psycho. I'm still wired. I'm like, it rubs people the wrong way sometimes because I'm like, when I sink my teeth into something,
We're going.
like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't like, I'm hardcore.
It's
And
red or green.
it's red or green, which, it probably didn't serve me the best in some moments, but I'm older and wiser, so I can control it. But yeah, and thankfully we had like Ryan Doyle and BT came out and Scott would come out and Pat obviously, and eventually Rob Jakes. I don't know if you talked to him, but you should talk to him.
I haven't talked to him.
He's gonna have some good stories. He was a sick rider too, by the way. But yeah, so we would just like a group of dudes like trying to ride, and you had Scott Doyle and BT wake skate, and we'd all wake skate and try stuff like before that was like big, you know, and wakeboard and do the Magic Cove. So that was like the main. We do double ups in there, and like that's where you like land your hero tricks, So yeah, we ride a lot, and then obviously rail sessions to the point like your hips hurt from riding on the jet ski all day.
Oh yeah.
I must have pulled Doyle for 10,000 hours.
Jeez. Well,
Yeah. One more. Wake skating, right?
The famous last words, one more. You can't be pulling that out, in my opinion. But all right. So we were talking sponsors.
Oh yeah, sorry. So
No, you're good.
I got way off track. Pat, it was from my memory, Pat's really what got it done.
Yeah.
And our name got out, and like he would obviously talk, and then guys would come see, and they'd be like, "Holy crap! Like these dudes are good." I got a deal with this new board company called Joyride. It was like my first. I think that was my first sponsor besides Pat and Scott. The projects. They were my real, they were my dads.
Exactly, mom and dad. Yeah, that's the...
No, so that I don't know who they were loose guys.
It was quick too, right?
It was like there and gone.
It's a good name for a board company.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, and the board was actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
This was like my introduction to like learning shapes and all that stuff. But yeah, and I was, a young, just like, holy cow, I made it to the show, like go to Surf Expo, and it was weird. But I don't know what happened. I don't even remember how much I got paid or if I got paid. And then that didn't work out. And then Double Up was still around. And that was exciting because we had like a cool team of guys, and we actually filmed a team video. And then the guy who owned it, who I think was from Minnesota, like a wealthy guy. This is from memory. And this is where I started to learn like history of wakeboarding was through the people that were in that, with Straight Line and Double Up, and I couldn't name all the guys, but there were guys who were like in Pat and Gator. They all lived together. I found all this stuff out, but we did a video and they sold it, and the video never went out.
Sick.
It's on YouTube, I think.
Really?
Yeah,
I'll have to find that.
If you Google my name, forget what it was called. If it's not there, I have it.
Because I did some digging, and I'll look.
It was like because we always wanted, what was it, Mayday?
Yeah.
Where they had to do like a team trip, and they put all these different personalities in a houseboat.
Yeah.
That was like, that's what I thought wakeboarding was. And I wanted to do that. And we did this trip, Northern California. I think Mike, I always murder his name, Sweeney.
See, that's not your fault, because I've heard there's two different. It's either Sven or Sweeney. Depends on the time of day, I guess.
No, but I think he set that up, and
yeah,
and we did a tour. It was a similar type lake, right? It wasn't Powell, but I never actually made it to Powell. But I was like, oh, we're like living Mayday right now. Like, this is sick. And we did the full houseboat, get hammered, party, and like ride. And so yeah, that sucked though, because I was just about to like sign like a
real contract.
I don't have to work deal. And then they sold the company, and I don't know what happened to it. It ended up in Europe. It still exists now, but it's not the same deal, obviously. So that was my intro.
So you're almost there. So, you're on Joyride. Nothing happens. Then next progression is Double Up.
Yep.
Really close.
Really
but
close.
Then nothing. is just almost there. So then after that is what, Gator? Or am I skipping a step there?
No, I think it was Gator.
It was Gator after that.
Yeah, I think Pat got me into Gator boards. And I was talking with I think this was Hyperlight breaking up into Ronix timeline.
That'd be what, 2006,
I
2007?
think it was
That
right
would be
around
that
that time.
I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Okay.
But back then you're like, nobody tells you how to negotiate, and like guys were making good money.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking back then, from just sponsorship. So yeah, I mean, it was like, and I was pretty good by that time. And I think I was starting to
Yeah, you've been down here for years now at this point.
Yeah, I bulldogged my way in, so I was a competitor and on boat. And so I wanted to get paid. And I think, those guys were like, well, I mean, it's like Parks, Ruck, Chad,
Danny Harf. Yeah,
Danny Harf, like they're like, well, we'd love to have you, but you're basically gonna start at the bottom, and at the bottom means like, here's a couple $100, and I'm like, or here's a few $1,000, so
yeah. What was Gator looking at? A few $1,000 a month?
I don't remember. I couldn't tell you the numbers.
Good enough where you don't have to work though.
Yeah, I didn't have to.
Yeah.
For the lifestyle, you weren't spending $2,000 a month on groceries back then, so.
True that.
So yeah, I mean, and that was cool. I mean, that was a cool ride. I'd never really met Gator.
Really?
No. So we got into that, and that was the Wild West. But how cool, like,
yeah, sick.
one of the legends has a board company. I'm on it with Ricky G and, Randall, and, there's Mark and a few other guys. So that was interesting. It was a different vibe for sure.
I was gonna say, are you still like riding park at this point? Like, are you doing both?
I was hard boat.
So you're at this point in time, you were.
But we like, I lived two lives. Like I was, and this is probably, a lesson in life, but I was trying to be good at everything. So basically back then it was rails, cable, boat.
Yeah.
Most of my time was boat. There were no rails, so of course we got the most time. So we were the best on rails, relatively speaking.
Accessibility, you guys in backyard.
We were doing the most, right? Yeah. And then cable, I had my whole cable life. That was a different group of people. So I would ride boat, I'd ride rails, and then I would go ride cable too. So I was putting in 8-10 hour days on a wakeboard. It was nuts. So yeah, I was mainly boat. I had a good year with that last year double up. Like I had some good results, like podium stuff.
Yeah.
I was starting to get a little tease of that. And then got with Gator, and then we did like a big trip for transgression and filming. And yeah, so yeah, I was living dual lives.
We'll talk about transgression in a minute here. But so after Gator though, there was one more, J-Star, right?
Yeah. J-Star came to me from Jeff Weatherall. I think he set that up. Like he was recruiting.
Yeah.
So Ike, I think, was on the team. Jeff, I can't remember who else, honestly, but they had, and that might have been when I was talking with Hyperlight Ronix. I can't remember. And,
yeah. In that time frame though.
Yeah, I mean, liquid stacked, and but I was just always trying to like find a home, and Gators didn't. There were whispers like I didn't know how long it was gonna last, and my contract was coming up to an end, and we weren't really talking about what was next, and I was riding with Weatherall, and we were doing moto and doing all his like crazy stuff, and I grew up riding dirt bikes and stuff. So but yeah, so I think he brought that to me, and that was like the first real like upgrade.
What are we talking? You remember that contract? How's she looking?
I was like somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
From a board company.
That's real deal money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, other guys will tell you, hopefully, I mean, there's no secrets, like whatever, right? But I think back then there was a board company coming out, and like Watson was getting $1 maybe go somewhere. There was whispers of that, and they were throwing like, I think like 10 plus K from a board company.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, this is like for that at that time, you know, this is that there's no longer Budweiser, you know, sponsoring Pro Tour, right? So we're not getting Darren Shapiro money, but, or even Murray. I think Murray has always done really well for himself, but, you know, nobody's coaching you through that. So I think I was like, yeah, this is,
Where do I sign?
yeah. And I got to get a board, you know, right out of the gate. And, you know, I was pretty opinionated about what kind of board I want to ride. So yeah, dropped into JSAR, and I think there was one more move after that, and then gone.
And then Control comes after.
And
that,
then
right?
Control.
Okay, so we'll get into Control after
Yeah.
because kind of want to go somewhat chronologically here.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking contracts, we're talking sponsors. You were on Nautique, you said, for what, 7 years?
I don't remember how long through the projects we got in the door. You know, I wasn't getting a boat because we had boats through Byerly. So, you know,
There's no point in just
yeah,
dropping another one in.
I think I got a couple $100 and, you know, if you got in a magazine, stuff like that. And so Nautique's, I think my third year I got a boat. And then the way they ran it is you got a boat every 2 years. So you get paid plus boat. And then, if you went like, for them, I went to Russia, like, I think 3 or 4 years in a row. I was like the only guy who would say yes. So I'd go live in Russia for, you know, 6 weeks and just freeze my butt off and hang out with people who drank vodka and didn't speak English.
But rode behind a Nautique.
Yeah. I think they had like 6 boats in the country at the time. And then, you know, by the time I, you know, left, it was, you know, I'd grown quite a bit, you know, and this is back in the day. I know it's a weird subject nowadays, but yeah, so it was with them and O'Neill. Because of Scott, you know, I think Scott helped me out getting there. I was a wakeboarder for O'Neill, but they're a surf brand and clothing brand, and they were doing some things, but they weren't paying athletes super well.
Yeah.
I'm sure Scott was doing well. I mean, he's a lifer.
Yeah.
And well-deserved, obviously, but, you know, you're trying to just get to that next level, and I didn't understand how it worked, so.
Well, how can you? I mean, there's no book to read of
No.
how to be an athlete and get paid by
No.
brands. You know what I mean?
No.
Nowadays, I'm sure there is, but not back then.
Yeah. So yeah, that was from my memory, that was a sponsorship round. We had some other stuff that happened in there. I think freestyle watches and other things, but I learned a lot about the business, you know, towards the end where you're like, hindsight's 2020. You're like, oh man.
If you just go back and.
Oh, dude, like I blew opportunities like you wouldn't believe.
How so? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like if I partied,
Well, red or green, you're going.
I'm going. It was like, it didn't matter what it was. So like, you know, I blew a lot of opportunities because I went too hard, and, you know, and then I would just go like cold turkey and just go hardcore riding.
Yeah.
I was just a dude trying to figure it out, you know.
Yeah.
But I was I was getting looked at for Malibu like in the early days before Nautiques, and we were supposed to do like a hangout with, I forget the group. I was like Jerry Nunn and like the team manager and somebody else, and it was at this event in Pensacola. They did this like collegiate event, and they like threw this. I mean, this is like a spring break place, I guess. I didn't know that. You know, we're 20 some years old, and they had these like insane nightclubs, and they had throw this party. VIPs, like I sent it, you know, like in this place, and then like had to meet them at 9 a.m. the next day, crazy hungover, and you know, I was like trying not to puke on everybody, and like I wasn't very social, and I think word get back because I stayed. You know, as things progressed over the years, I talked to them. They're like, yeah, dude, we thought something was wrong with you. Like, you didn't talk. You weren't very social. Like, you didn't look like you cared. And I was like, no, honestly, I was just hungover. Like, that's what it was. And then, you know, Jerry Nunn, he's a straight flyer back, you know, straight shooter. And he was like their guy. And, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a journey.
That's just.
That's one example of many.
That's a good one. You know,
I've got a couple vivid memories of things where you just like, I said that?
Ah, shit.
I did that? Yeah, so to those guys, like I liked all you guys. If I said something stupid, I didn't mean it.
Yeah, that's life.
I was flailing.
Flailing. All right, so we got a Patreon question from Garrett Cortez. So if you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, join the Patreon is the best way to do so. Thank you to everybody on the Patreon. It means a lot. Helps keep this podcast going. So Garrett's wondering, he's going, from what I recall, Keith is the only rider to ever get a cover of Wakeboarding Mag and Alliance in the same month. So I'll do my best to fact check that, but he's pretty dialed in with this stuff.
Yeah.
He said you were doing an air trick on the cover of Wakeboarding Mag, and he thinks it's an Indy Backside 1 behind the boat.
Yeah.
The projects on the cover of Alliance, he's thinking this is 2006. So he's just wondering what the photo incentives were looking like for that month, because it had to be decent if you're getting double covers.
I guess I probably was with Nautiques. I was with O'Neill. I think I was Gator. I think maybe it wasn't crazy, but $1,000-$2,500 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe $5.
Do you remember getting that double cover though? Like, I guess not double cover.
Yeah, I do, because I got shit from it, from like the athletes, because it never happened, right? And you know, I was not probably the most covered wakeboarder at my level.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was a competitor, I was in the scene, but I wasn't dialed in with the sponsorships. But hindsight 2020 again, like, I didn't realize I was getting that stuff because Nautiques is running ads, O'Neill's running ads, Gator's running ads. You know, like, there's a business side to this that I didn't know. So it was a surprise. Nobody told me. And yeah, I've got them. It was the same freaking month. And we would get them at the projects, and like, you know, one of the guys come and be like, dude, you're like, what? So that was pretty cool too, because I was passionate about cable, and I was passionate about making cable, present cable, and like, this is a thing, like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And you guys, you got to go to Europe. Like, this is nuts. Like, you think this in the US is like it's a different thing, but it's fun over there. And those guys, those people over there they know how to do it.
They get it, yeah.
They get it. And we need to figure out how to do this here. Like, and to have that on the cover. And I think in that magazine too, I think it was a big instructional magazine. I have it in a Tupperware somewhere at home in the garage, but they did like, and I loved these in the magazines, like the sequence of tricks. And I had a bunch of like grabbed air tricks, you know, like no kickers or anything.
Yeah.
That I still to this day, I think I think there's cool ways to do air tricks.
100%.
You know, there's gonna be strong opinions in both ways, but plus it's a great workout. Yeah.
Good for the abs.
Still got abs. I'm 43 and fat, and I got abs. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. And I think it was around. Don't get me. It wasn't Expo. It was right before, or right at. So it was like everybody's like in your face, like, what the?
Yeah.
And I heard whisperings. People are pissed, but I don't know why.
Screw them, dude. That's sick.
Yeah.
That is a sick
I mean, like
moment.
5 guys dominated the cover for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, F off, dude. Like,
let me have my moment here.
yeah, give me some love. But yeah, that was.
I mean, that's a sick thing, because you know, you'd have to go through the archives to see what the time frames of people getting covered at the same time was, but it didn't happen much, I would imagine.
Well, and you know, I keep mentioning Pointless because it was like those were the guys, you know, and they understood how this world worked. They were progressive, they were pushing it, but they shot photos, you know, and like even Staker and those guys, like media guys and Garrett, like they were all friends and they all hung out, and I saw those guys downtown partying and stuff, but I never like proactively set up shoots. I didn't know that's what you did. I didn't know you had to ask those guys to like, hey, I got this trick, or I got this thing. It didn't come till later, you know. So I mean, this is literally like, I probably shot like 3 or 4 times like in that year, like an idiot, and like 2 of them I got on covers.
Yeah. Well, that's like
somebody set it up for me. I didn't even set it up.
That doesn't change until now. Like, it still hasn't changed. It's like, if you want to get covered, be around. You got to be around.
You have to. So like, to the new guys, like, you know, you don't have to be like, hey, can we hang out? You know,
have to barge your way in the door, but
no, but who's taking photo? Like, who is it? Or start your own thing. Like, you look at some of those guys at the end of the years, you know, that just took control and made their own crews and stuff. But yeah, you have to go get it.
Yeah, you got to be involved.
You can't just be good. You know, you can't just be like a rock star in your home lake.
Only one person can do that. Only one person can be the best.
Yeah.
And if you're that guy, sure, you'll get covered. But
Yeah, you'll get covered. But
all right, so I think it's time we dive into another segment called Deserve Some Love, presented by Driftline. So Driftline makes the best boardies in the game. They got a wetsuit liner in them, keep you warm, keep you protected. Use code GRAB15 for 15% off your order. This segment is just a chance to give some love to somebody that you've had that either helped you out along your career, or maybe you saw them, they didn't get the sponsorships that they maybe deserved, or you thought they could have gotten to really help their career. So it could be photographer, writer, industry person, anything.
Ooh, that's heavy.
It is, yeah. And it doesn't. You don't have to limit to one, but
No, I mean, I think first and foremost, Papanakos. He's a special human being, and I'm not the only person who's going to say that. But he had some of the earliest impact on my trajectory, and a wise guy at a young age, right? I'm 43 and I'm learning stuff in the last few years that like this guy was nailing in his late 20s and 30s, right? He was kind of like our in-house dad mentor or whatever. So, I mean, that's probably honestly the one who really like got me out of just like, I'm riding the projects doing like hammer tricks and nobody knows about it, to traveling and getting sponsored. That's one. I mean, I mentioned him earlier, Donald Shelbrick. He was like the first guy, besides my buddy Adam, who hung around the industry for quite a while, did a lot of stuff. But he was the first dude who I like was trying to do stuff they were doing. I like admired as an early rider who I didn't know, who was nice. He was like, hey, like let's go ride, and I was like, oh,
inclusive, yeah,
sick. Like this is. That was the first time I was like, oh, this is like you got like surf vibe, like there's somebody's like, now I'm part of this little group. So I'm talking like way back. So those guys, Ferraro and Marcus, who people aren't going to know, but Ferraro, they probably know. Renee, the cable, there's 10, 15 people I could rattle off.
Oh yeah.
And then like, those were like the original, like big movers, Chris Law, there's another part I can't remember his name, but guys that like we rode boat with. I'm just trying to dig. Forgive me if
that's a lot of good names though.
Yeah, and then subsequent years there were other guys, for different reasons.
Sure.
But those were probably from Orlando, the main
some pivotal players in
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
those are some good names. All right, I think we dive into some videos because you touched on, or you alluded to, transgression.
Yeah.
Great video part.
Thank you.
The chest high flat bar.
Yeah.
You remember that? The fuck? What was that thing? Was huge.
Yeah, it was.
And I'll put clips in obviously for the viewers, but
yeah, that one's funny. Like there was no like, I don't remember whose it was or who built it. Maybe Wes Briscoe or somebody said, hey, let's go film this rail. Cause we had like my gap and stuff that we were meant to film, but we had to get a helicopter and all that lined up. So from memory, they were like, hey, let's get some shots here on, forget that lake, but Pickett. I think it was Lake Pickett. And we were like, yeah, okay. Of course, back then I was just a dipshit and stayed out late. I was super hungover for that. I think
really?
I was probably still buzzed, yeah. And there's that rail and the water was low, and I don't even know if anybody else hit it. I honestly have no memory.
You broke it, so nobody hit it after you, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely nobody hit it after. But I had that was a thing back then, like who can get on a rail that's like, head high or whatever. Lyman was doing stuff. I was doing stuff. Maybe a couple others, but there wasn't, maybe Colin. But yeah, so that was like cool. It was something we did, and I had kind of like a little way to do that. It probably came from cable. So anyway, we went out and rode by it a few times. It was cold. I was hungover, but we needed shots, and I didn't want them all to just be like random park things. So yeah, we hit that, and I mean, I think he put every
I mean, you sessioned it.
Clip in it made the movie, and then of course it broke, and like
that could have been bad, by the way.
Yeah, to me as a rider and at the time, and even when the movie came out, like I was like, yeah, whatever, like it's just a stupid little flat bar. Like, yeah, it looked cool, what maybe, but I wasn't like, I didn't, in my mind, I was like, okay, I guess that's cool. They put that in, but I got so many, to this day, people are like, that rail, and I'm like, dude, I did a freaking, like the largest gap ever over ground, but you guys are talking about the stupid flat bar I ollied on, like, but it just was interesting to me, like what stoked people out.
Well, I got a couple of people that on the Patreon were like, just want to hear about it, and I think it's a couple of reasons. One, it's a huge ollie. Yeah. Like and you're behind a jet ski, so like that's hard. Yeah. Two, they were as teed up and proper rail hits as you could get, and especially in that time, right, when not a lot of rail hits were like that. Yeah. So it's, I mean, I think you did same way too, Pretz 2, and then you did like change up on one of them, and obviously broke it at the end. But like, I think if you add all those things together, it's like at this time in wakeboarding, no one's like,
there's only a couple of us.
Teed up wakeboarding wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
So especially, and you can find all those things. I think that's why I was just
I rode rails every day, and to be fair, it was just a matter of access. So there was a moment when like nobody was hitting rails as much as myself and the guys of the project. Yeah. Like nobody. So of course, and then Pat's like overlapping. People are always like, yo, let's do this. I mean, Pat was riding, like testing out the first finless, wakeboard or rail board. Yeah. I know there were like others, but like actually for that. So, I mean, yeah, we were just trying stuff and watching snowboarding and then bringing it back and having that background from Minnesota, especially like that's all we did was rails in Minnesota. So, yeah.
The kit was on point too. The beanie was good. I think you had like a flannel or something else on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cold hungover morning in Florida, and
it was
got some clips.
Got some like, hey, you make it sound like, I'm like, actually maybe it was. Yeah, you're right on. Like, it was pretty sick.
It was pretty sick. I mean,
I'll have to go watch it.
You got to rewatch it. Watch it tonight when you get home, because
I'll be sitting in bed at 8, with a tear in my eye, like, oh, that was cool.
It was cool. Let's talk global warning.
Yeah, so that was Ronnie and I forget the other guy, but I think Jeff got me in on that one again. Like Jeff and I like rode a lot together. We had similar ambitions and similar likes and stuff. And that was fun. That was a really fun video because we did like not a team trip. It was like a group of dudes who were like doing well at the time, and we weren't even all friends or like, hanging out every day. So it was like interesting personality dynamics. Yeah. We traveled to New Zealand, Mexico. I mean, and everybody did different trips, right? But there was a New Zealand trip. It was really funny. I got a story I got to tell from that trip. So we were really into pranking people back then. And there's two. And when you talk to these guys, they have to remember. It was funny as hell to me, and Jeff, but one was stupid. It was just like, we're just messing. Like, we were always like, because Jeff and I were like early risers. Like I wouldn't call us professional, but like we want to get out. We want the light. We want to get out and start riding. Like boom, right? And then we had like JD and Rathy. On that trip, and this is my memory, right? It could be different for those guys, but like they were so fucking lazy and they wouldn't like get up, and we were always like, "Come on, like we gotta go, like we're missing the light." We were really passionate about making like a good movie, and having a good set, and so by this time of the trip, we were all just like crunchy and over it and tired and whatever. We've been traveling. I think we were in Australia before that or whatever, but there was this dead eel on the dock one day. And Rathy just taking a sweet ass fucking time, and we had two boats, right? So we put this dead eel just limp in his binding and like slapped it in there and just left his boat because he was supposed to ride first too, of course. So we just like left it on the dock like ready, and he comes down like crunchy because we've just been yelling at him all morning, right? And like we're already like 100 feet off the dock, like in the other boat, and he lost his mind, dude. he wanted to fight, and it was like, you know, it was just a moment, right? Like a weak moment for everybody. And we were in the boat just in tears, antagonizing him. And, you know, like he just wanted to murder us. And he's, I don't know if you know, that guy was like a boxer. Like, you know, his head's like a concrete freaking cinder block. Like, if he wanted to fight you for real, and he did, like, you were not going to have a good day. Like, this guy actually was trained. From my memory, I think his parents were boxers or something too. I don't know. I don't know his history, but, and I could have made that up, but that's what I understood.
There was some external reason of like, okay, well, there's a little bit more.
You're like, you're poking the bear.
Yeah.
Right. And he's a rad dude, right? So, but still.
Yeah, slipping in a little bit, bud.
So that's like a pretty PC, just like fucking with the guy because he's being a pain in the ass. But the real prank we did, we were at a gas station, and sorry, I'm taking up time, but this is
No, this is good. This is exactly what.
This is I hope he remembers. But we were at a gas station, and I don't know, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have like porno magazines in the gas station. They'd have like a cover on it, but the title.
Yeah.
And there'd be like a section that you could get. And we're in New Zealand, and there was a section like that. So Jeff got the idea. He's like, hey, check this out. So he gets this magazine. We're, you know, just being dummies, flipping through it, whatever. And then we're sitting hanging out, and we're like, you know, it'd be really funny because JD was leaving before all of us. Let's cut a picture out and put it on his passport. So we snuck and grabbed his passport, and we put this hardcore like porn.
One of the worst ones in there.
Yeah, and on his like passport photo, put it back in his bag. And like back then, like when we traveled, like it was always a last minute thing. You're always grabbing your stuff to get out. So of course, like he's rushing, he leaves. We were still there, and he got in trouble because he didn't know, right? So he's going through security, and like, you know, just hands his passport over, and they open it like you think this is funny, right? I don't know what happened, if he got pulled aside or whatever, but like, and he wasn't a guy you want to mess with either, right? Like if he was in the wrong mood, he was not stoked. And I think he got in some trouble. He didn't get like big trouble, but like
inconvenience for sure. Maybe
yeah, we're off
flight, or who knows what happened.
I think we went and did a moto thing after that, and like we got word that he was pretty bent, you know. But you know, here we are today. It's freaking hilarious. It was funny to me at the time still. Like,
I mean, that is funny.
Sorry about you.
That's just textbook funny. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's like, you're not going to get in real trouble. You're going to get in fake trouble. So it's like,
but it was, I think even the person that got it was like not the right person to see. Yeah. So, that was
customs for
that was the kind of stuff Jeff and I did.
I love that shit. That's the good stuff.
So that was from that trip. Yeah.
Yeah. The one other thing I had on Global Warning was, do you think wakeboarding needs more dynamite in microwaves? Because I think yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We're in Mexico, dude. Like, you should do whatever you want. We were so bored. Like,
how do you get dynamite? I mean,
I don't know. He had it,
You got a
and
plug.
we were like, this will be funny, so let's do it. You know, those Jackass days, right? So
That's
like,
funny.
you know, and yeah, and then we couldn't believe it worked. I mean, the freaking top of that microwave must have, like, we found it like a mile away. I mean, it was real dynamite.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Let's talk Hypnos. So I couldn't find the full movie, obviously, on the internet, but I believe I did find your section with some of the boys, Andy, the other guys, and
I'm the cable one, right?
this cable one, yeah, Hypnotics in Turkey, right?
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one.
yeah.
I don't even remember.
I did some like diving on that. There was like a good article on like how much they spent on this movie. They said it was like 80 to 100K, and there was like all these other things. But
Who? What's his name? Is it a German guy that did that one?
I don't know. I have to pull up the article. And
He's like a pretty successful producer over there now, I think. Like, because we did a couple with him. I don't actually remember that one, dude.
you remember Hypnos?
No, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, you should, because your part, the like sections on YouTube. It's like, well, now I guess these two questions that I have on it, I don't know if you'll be able to answer.
You could
it if
try.
don't really remember.
Maybe you'll knock some cobwebs out. But
I mean, I guess the first one is, if you don't even remember filming, but did you feel more at home filming with strictly cable guys than you did, you know, when you would film with boat people?
Boat people was like boat filming was a production.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's so many moving pieces.
Jace boat, heli.
And by the way, this is fast forward into the future, like when we had control, we tried to organize some things, and I had some hard lessons, right? Like there's a lot of financial stuff in there that you just think everybody, but yeah. So anyway, boat, big production, like a lot at stake. And back then, like, we had digital by then, but there was, think of Transgression, that was all film. So that was a few $100,000 project. Yeah. But yeah, so that, it was again, I think that was a European group. The cable stuff was like, it was fun, but you're limited at what you're going to get, because you're at one place, It was fun to be in a unique place like that. That cable is so, like, now I think it's super rad. They've got like houses you can rent. And it's a unique place too. And there's like a 5-star, because we had a couple contests there too after that. I forget the guy, the owner, he was a cool guy, but I loved traveling to those places. So that I loved cable. I loved just hanging out at one spot. It was easy. I think if that was that one, I think we just filmed at the one cable, and it was like Nick Davies and Lior and a few other people who were doing crazy stuff on cable. Like, I was good and I could do some stuff, but I wasn't keeping up by that point. Tom and Lior and those guys were
pushing it to the next level.
Yeah, and I just couldn't hang. And I was spread too thin. I was still doing boat. And I was doing other things. So, and then I just didn't, they were the new world. And I think Daniel, I don't know if Daniel Grant was around back then yet. He was just starting to, he was a little kid. But yeah, I forgot your question, but yeah.
You kind of answered it. I mean, it was just the difference in filming between boat and cable, and you kind of answered that. But did you, you remember talking to Andy Kolb at all?
Andy, I talked with Andy. I don't have any specific memory. He was just like real artsy guy.
Yeah.
Super cool dude. I think because he was more on the wake skate side, like we didn't connect as much. So I don't have any specific.
I was just wondering if you talked to him about basketball, because he's a big fan of basketball.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. He was more friends with from memory. I love the guy. I think he's rad, but when we were at the project, at Kevin and, Kevin's place out there, we hung out a little bit more over there, but they were more,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just, that's interesting that, I'd never watched Hypnos in its entirety, but
I guess I got to watch it now.
Yeah, I'll put the link obviously to that section. I couldn't find the whole thing, but I'll put the link to that section.
Yeah, I don't even know what tricks I did, if I even did anything decent.
No tricks. There's some slides on some rails.
Some sidewalk sliding, Let's go film on some sidewalks.
I got one from Robbie Houlihan, and he's wondering if, in hindsight, getting pissed off while riding was a motivation or a hindrance to your progression.
You'd have to talk to the people that paid. I'm sure it was. I had a short temper. I was loose because, and I've learned this, as I gotten older. But it wasn't something I'm like stoked about, right? Like, it wasn't that important. You leave wakeboarding, you find out nobody gives two shits about wakeboarding, right? Like, we were a small little community, and I had so much. I didn't have backup. There was no plan B, right? So in those early days, I think of one vividly as for one of the first contests in TSR. I literally got in my car, drove there from Florida, and I didn't have enough money to get home. So if I didn't win, I couldn't afford rent, and I couldn't afford to even drive home. That was kind of like decisions I was making. I'm going to go here, and I have to win or what. I had no plan.
You said you're all in or you're all out, so you're all in.
Yeah. So if I was not riding well, it was like in here, it was like, it wasn't me. It wasn't so much about like the riding as much as it was the outcome of me not performing. Yeah. Right. So I had a lot of, and I put just silly, stupid pressure on myself. So yeah. But yeah, I don't think it was good. I think it was a hindrance for sure. I'm sure I got labeled as a hothead, which was, everybody gets frustrated, but I took it like there was a lot of F-bombs being dropped for a few years.
Yeah.
Eventually I think I lightened up a little bit, but probably not.
Revisionist history there. I probably really know a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not proud of those moments, but you
never went with the underwater
oh,
F-bombs and then
oh.
you come up and okay, I got it out.
I
You try to pull those out,
graduated.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
graduated to that.
That's the graduation.
I mean, I got
there.
pulled aside quite a few times by friends and organizers and owners and hey man, like there's kids here and like you're like, yeah, okay. But
You're in the zone, you're in your head, yeah.
I had some good friends though that, smacked some sense into me at some point.
Yeah.
Earl Ball's one of them, out in Texas. He was always level headed. So he probably there's a couple people that get your shit together.
Yeah, good to have those guys around.
This isn't that big a deal, dude. Like, yes, it is.
It is to me right now.
I need that $200.
All right, let's dive into the carnival. So, is this
Yeah, salt in the wound.
Yep. So, well, let's kind of preface it for those who don't know what the carnival was. I guess give just a quick rundown of, because this is a very pivotal contest, I think, that ever happened in wakeboarding history. There's a lot you can point to, but this is a big one.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of give the quick rundown of it.
So Carnival was an event that was thrown before my day, like originally. That was like, from my understanding, like the first big, like rail stunt, core event, right? That they put on the projects, and they had all those crazy rails, and correct me if I'm wrong, they had the limo out there and all that kind of stuff, and that was like the birth of the projects, from my understanding. And I don't really remember the history. There might have been one more, but they brought it back in my time, and that was when I was like peak. Like I had won every rail contest, every rail jam, every big event. I was winning wake stock. Like,
You're the guy to beat rail wise.
yeah, and it was like, it was, again, it comes back to like I just had more laps than everybody. So of course, like, I'm more comfortable, right? So, but yeah, I mean, for me that was a big deal, and they put it together at the projects. I think he was even Red Bull sponsored. Mags were out there, and Parks, I think, had the belt. That's why I think there was one more in between, or maybe he won like that first one. I'd have to go back to, this is pre my time, but so they had it set up like boxing, right? So Parks was like, you had to ride against Parks in the final. So he didn't have to ride the whole event.
Yeah.
Right. But you had to earn your spot, and it was all in the same day. And that was like our park. So strong advantage. I mean, we ride there, live there, whatever. And it was pretty well known. And don't get me wrong, like there were other really strong riders. Like Rathy was consistent. Lyman was really doing really well. There were a lot of good rail riders by that time, Watson and Shane and everybody. But as far as putting a line together and doing big, I had like a strong opportunity to like kind of plant my flag. I'd planted it everywhere else. This was kind of like the final deal, and like, Parks is the guy, right? And he's the guy in all those videos, doing gaps and all the crazy stuff. Yeah, and so that day it was sick, super excited. We did the whole deal and riding, and I was super pumped because I'm like, this is gonna be a freaking cakewalk. And I don't know how many times we rode, 4 or 5 times, like competitive passes, and I think we did 2 or 4 passes, like 1 down, 2 back, 3, 4. It was a lot, and those were like 4-foot ollies on a bunch of them.
Yeah.
If you were gonna hit them coming back, you're doing like dangerous big ollies, and so and it wasn't like easy by any stretch of the imagination. It was close all the way. I think I rode against, it was like a bracket system, and I think the last guy, if my memory serves, is Rathy and I, and it was close. Like, and you're getting tired, and
yeah,
I mean, you're just jumping. Like, this isn't like Pro Tour, like you ride a pass and then you go back the next day and ride your next pass and then you go back the next day. Like,
it moves quick.
boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. And they were on a schedule. And my memory is we didn't get a break after the gauntlet. Like I ran the gauntlet. I think we got 10 minutes. And then I had to ride first again. I could be wrong, but I swear I had to ride first because Parks has the belt, right?
So you beat Rathy.
So I beat Rath. I think it was Rathy.
Okay. Or whoever. You beat.
Whoever.
You win.
I get there. They regroup. They do the whatever thing. And they're like, okay, Keith against Parks. And because he's like the belt holder, I think I went first.
That would make sense.
And I rode like shit. Left the door wide open. And I mean, it was quite honestly, it was just physically, I couldn't make the ollie anymore. Yeah. I mean, I just rode 4 or 5 sets, like adrenaline, the whole deal. And it's not like we were freaking long distance athletes, right? Like you ride, you're tired, you just stop riding. So I don't remember. Yeah, I remember I was not stoked. And then he rode, and Parks wasn't like riding a ton. He was still around and he was still doing cool stuff, but it wasn't like he was riding every day at that time. So he wasn't his best, but he went out and just kind of did you
left the door wide open. He doesn't have to.
He goes and does a showboat.
Pressure on him, yeah.
No, I mean, it's not like he didn't ride well. He did
Sure.
awesome stuff. And he's guy's a legend. He's insane. But yeah, I mean, I should have beat him. Like that was my event to win. And I didn't. And I was super pissed. And it was like close too. Like even though I didn't ride well, like it was still close enough to go one way or another. And I was ultra competitive, right? Like I had a bulldog into the space. I wasn't like, we were all tight, we all hung out, but it wasn't like I was hanging out with these guys on a personal level every day. So this was like I looked at it as a way to like, okay, I'm one of the guys.
Yeah.
In my mind, I hadn't made it yet, even though I had all this like stuff. That's when you get older. You're like, oh, why don't you just enjoy it, So yeah, it didn't. Congrats to Parks, and that was awesome for him because he carried the belt, and then I was like, I want it again, and we want this event again, and we need to change the format so like I can actually have a real chance, or anybody can. Like I don't care who it is.
Yeah, it's
like,
not
ride 6 times. The other guy doesn't just like. And you could argue the opposite, right? Like he didn't get any rides.
Rest versus rust.
No, I think he even got a warm up. Like he got to go sesh. Yeah, and again, like somebody could debunk this, but this left a lasting impression. I was pissed. I was super pissed. I think I was not stoked for a while after that.
Yeah,
because I felt like I just missed my opportunity. And there was a couple other Red Bull events where it happened again. Where like the event was rushed and some BS and I didn't make it through, and that was like my event to lose. And so I had a lot of those experiences, and that's probably wasn't unique to me, but in my head it was.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one too, because you work your way all the way through the bracket or however many rounds it was, and yeah, you're gassed. But now here's this moment, one of the biggest moments of anyone's career would be going up against Parks Bonifay.
You're riding against a dude who like literally was a reason you got into wakeboarding.
Yeah.
He was watching this guy on ESPN2 when I'm in northern Minnesota on TV going like, he's like this kid doing a flip off a kicker. And I'm like, he's on TV, and like fast forward however many years and you're like, oh, like we're going to be talked about. That's how my brain works, coming from team sports and legends and like Wayne Gretzky and all these things. So that's how I thought this world was. And I just took it so serious.
Yeah. Did you get anything for getting to where you got? I mean, was there anything? Purse, a little bit.
I got to be the first loser. Maybe I made that. It didn't matter. It wasn't about the money.
Right.
I wanted an effing belt, dude.
I want the fucking belt, man. That's what I want. Yeah, that's fair.
I got 3 wake sock belts, so suck it, Parks. He's got them too, right? But
he's got plenty of accolades.
He's got plenty of belts. No, he's fine. He'll be fine. But
that's a tough one.
Hey, man, like it's cool. Your name's.
But it's also a cool moment to even be involved in when you look at it back.
You're like, yeah. Hindsight again today, an adult, like what a rad experience. Yeah, for sure. I wish I would have thought about it that way back then, but I can do it now.
Wake the line. So
fucking hell.
I was watching some Wake the Line highlights, and I'm actually genuinely curious on how hard it was for you guys to hit that quarter pipe in the pool.
I'll tell you right now, like trend, that was a trend. Fuck the quarter pipe. This is like not a sport for quarter pipes.
Yeah.
I don't care what you. I will fight me. No,
I'm not gonna fight you because I totally agree.
I'm not gonna fight anybody, dude. I'm a wimp. But I get it, right? Like progression's trying things.
You have to experiment.
But no, it's not like have you ridden a half pipe like or a skateboard? Like you have control on the vert.
The surface.
Yeah.
The surface gives.
You have no control on a wakeboard. And the way it was getting judged, I mean, what a cool way to like get back into the course, right? Yeah. Like in that event is hands down, I would say top 2, top 3 events ever done by a mile. Like I love you Pro Tour. I love you, which I got some beef with Alliance, but we could bring that back up. But that event was like a monster. Quarter pipe, yeah, screw you. Shouldn't be included. And guys were sneaking through because like they just didn't fall.
Yeah.
And hey, by the way, like that's on your driver, right?
I think that's also a huge factor into this whole
they
quarter
time
pipe
it wrong,
situation too.
You're slipping out.
Yeah.
If they time it wrong, you have too much tension. You got too much speed. You're slipping out. Like
you could land it, but if the driver isn't exactly matching where your trajectory is going, you just sink into the water or whatever. So it's
but
have tension. Blah, blah, blah.
I will say, Ollie Jerome could hit that quarter pipe and make it look cool. I think he did a hand plant or some stuff. It was just like, right on, man. And he might have even done a 360 or something. It was like you were just like, what? Like I still hated it, but he did it, and it was like, okay, well, I guess
if somebody can do it,
figure
make
it out.
Look good, then fuck, man. Like,
he had it figured out, but they had one, I think, at their house.
Oh, did they?
I think so. I could be wrong.
That'll do it.
So
yeah, the QP just. I'm glad it's not. I mean, it's not a thing anymore anyway. So it's good. It shouldn't have.
But that contest was like, I mean, they just did it better in Europe.
Yeah, it looks so good from the.
Yeah, it was. They just did it was professional. That you show up. They have events planned. They take everybody to a dinner. They do the like riding brackets. It's like a whole thing, and then it's like, I mean, where do we get to ride where there's people like thousands of people right here? Wakestock was the first one that I was a part of where, I mean, you're grabbing beers out of people's hands because, the beer tent's with like right next to the rail. But this was like even better than that. So yeah, that was a cool event. And I found out from Raph's movie, I did not know this until I saw his
Au revoir.
His au revoir. When I got hurt in practice, which like that was a contest for me to lose that year. That's why he got in, and then he just destroyed it. And I didn't even know he was like training. Like he had, he was hardcore too, right? Yeah. Like
he's after him.
So I was pretty impressed. I was like, what? Like,
so you were the one that got hurt.
I got hurt. He took my spot. He won.
So basically, Raph Jerome is Raph Jerome because of you.
It's not even. No. Let's not go that far. But that was a cool little factoid that I didn't, I even was like, I'm going to try to ride, 2 broken ribs. But no, I was pretty sad after that. And I don't think I came back.
What a moment, though. I didn't,
Yeah.
Just.
Because we had a couple years before. And, but you mean just to be a part of that stuff. I mean.
So cool.
Dude, so insane. And hats off to the cruise out unit and everybody over in Germany that puts on these events over there. So, I mean, geez.
Unreal.
These guys, amazing people. Yeah.
All right, let's talk control.
Yeah.
So there could be a lot to talk about here, but when and why, I guess when isn't as big of a deal as after all these other board brands and stuff, but why did you help start Control, and what was Control?
Well, I can only share so much probably, but this is where I got like my first, okay, I see how things work, right? And that whole journey was like really eye-opening, and that unpacked a lot for younger me, like, oh, okay, that connects to that. So there were, a lot of these board companies are backed by investors, and some of the like fringe brands had guys that were involved that were like out of country. And, I learned a lot about the European market and the North American market, and generally speaking, everybody knows Liquid Force. Everyone knows Hyperlight, O'Brien, Ronix, and generally understands if you're in the world, like, who's behind those. And there's a lot of history, but J-Star was really run by a guy named Brett Hagen, who used to be part of in-house, I can't remember, but like tied to Herb and Paul back then. And I don't know, I need to get in the weeds, but J-Star was kind of like having some issues with ownership stuff, and we were trying hard, and that's why Jeff brought me in the first place, to build out North America and like get traction. And we were trying, and we didn't know our heads from our asses, right? Like, we like to think we did, but long story short, like, I think the funding was just was getting cut or something, and I was approached to like, hey, like, I think we could go do this. What do you think? And the timing was right, and it wasn't a good transition for everybody, and I feel bad about that. And but in the sport, it was like, everybody, you gotta kind of protect yourself.
It's business in a sense. You gotta.
Yeah, and it was like pretty abrupt. It was like Christmas, like, we're not here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you want to go do this? And I think we could figure out a way to keep you alive. And unfortunately, not everybody was able to come along on that ride. There was, and we had plenty of conversation about how can we make it work. But I mean, literally, like, I can't talk to where the money came from, but it was self-funded. I didn't have a lot. I was minority, but I was a big part of like putting it together, and helping build a vision for it. But I mean, the goal was to build, like, really double down on cable. Right, Slingshot was coming around. They had good money behind them. Liquid is Liquid, right? But it was still really heavy boat, right? Liquid was doing really well in Europe, but we had this opportunity to just go hard at cable, because I had already left Nautique, I was all in on cable. I was spending most of my time in Europe, and we had distribution already, like, we had all the relationships. So we're like, okay, we can swarm Europe and Asia. That's going to, like, we can live off of that, right? And then we'll build out the US. And we kind of had some cool ideas of like how to like stay quiet and make, like, a mystery behind it. I mean, the first year we were in Surf Expo, we got a booth and just put like a podium with like our logo, like, I can't remember what it was, but like in the podium, and then like some stickers on the ground, and that's it. So we had a booth, like a 10x10.
Yeah.
And we weren't there the whole weekend.
So you just set it up and never came back?
We did an offsite because it was super expensive. There's a business side to this.
Yeah.
And that was like pretty, like, we didn't get super great feedback on that, because like it's like supporting the industry and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, we don't have Liquid budget, we didn't have Ronix budget. So, so we did some stuff offsite, and really that was just setting up and dealing with all the European accounts and Asian accounts. And so that's the business of it. We were really good at board shapes. We had a very clear vision. We had like some technology stuff, and Brett was like, he was in the world forever behind the scenes, and he had all the factory relationships and everything. So exciting, was a natural progression for me to just like move more into that space and stop being like an athlete and trying to be, and learn. But I didn't, I was just winging it, to be honest, and leveraging my relationships as best we could to get some sales. And I think it was a great idea. It was great branding. It was a good concept. We put together a like hammer cable team, but we just didn't have the resources and the infrastructure to like run it the way, like, we did our best. And ultimately the demise of the company, for anybody who wants to know, is just like, because we were living on Europe and Asia, like, you have limited seasons. So you miss a delivery, you're late.
It's huge.
It's a big deal. And then we had some product issues that were just manufacturing fuck ups.
Yeah.
It wasn't a design problem. It was a product problem. And it doesn't matter if it's warranted. Like, you're literally you're sending a container from Asia to Europe, like, and these people like are buying their product in like April, May, so that as soon as they can ride, they're riding. And the very first session you go out, your board breaks or your binding blows out.
Yeah.
Oh, this brand is terrible.
For a new brand too. You're not established where it's like, oh, maybe an issue this year. But it's like, no.
So, and that just kneecapped us. And that happened, I think the first year we were okay. And then the second year we had a couple little missteps that just tanked our third year orders. And then it happened again, like on a different level. And then North America. And then there's some other shady shit that happened that was pretty messed up. And, business, which I know I'm very intimately aware of, like how things can go sideways and, how capital intensive. I mean, it's not a smart idea to start a business. It just is not. It's stupid, especially if you don't have money.
Yeah.
And if you don't have experience. Like, we had the experience, we had the network. It made sense, and it was going to work. But, there's those things you just don't see. I mean, it's the same guy behind JSTAR. It was the same guy behind other stuff. We didn't have those issues at JSTAR, right? And that company was around for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So why would we wouldn't change a ton. It wasn't like we came out with this new crazy slingshot technology, right? Like, and go all in on that. So it was a missed opportunity that just, I don't think it was mismanaged in any way. It was just simply like, it was a matter of fact, like, why, if you're a shop owner, Liquid's delivering a month earlier than you and selling 90% of their product out, by mid-season, and they're not having to wholesale everything.
Yeah.
Who are you going to buy?
And they're an established brand too.
Yeah. And they, by the way, they've got great representation over there. Yeah. Like, they got a freaking cable park. It's not Liquid's cable park, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm speaking to Germany specifically. Yeah. And we were in all the countries over there, but still. Yeah, I mean, it was a bummer. And it's sad because we had traction. It was going to be its own unique thing.
When it came out, I mean, like I was old enough at this point to kind of like follow. I mean, there's articles, there's buzz, stuff's happening, and I don't know. I feel like in business, people will lie to you and they'll tell you like, oh, it's not luck, but like there is a big area of luck involved in starting any form of business, whether that's relationships or not having manufacturing issues at a certain point early on, or whatever it is, and like. Well, there is luck. There's also unluck. I'm a firm believer you create your own luck, right? Yeah. But you can have all the pieces and all the fundamentals and execute, and you have a little bit of bad luck. And not to simplify it, but if you don't have the capital to survive that bad luck. Yeah. Well, you have to push through either,
Yeah. And where's that going to Yeah. If you can't get creative, and I'll tell you, it's not easy to get capital, and it's not easy to get spanked like that and like want to go again.
Yeah.
And we did, and you can only take it so far, and it kind of just fizzled out.
So, I mean, I know what CTRL stands for, but what does it stand for, or did stand for?
Control. I mean,
what was the cable technology research? Was that actually a thing? Or okay,
it was. We called it control. It was around cable. We didn't go cable in the word, that's why we abbreviated it. But, for me, it was there was a little bit of symbolism in it. You're just like controlling your own future. Cause there's like, I was a part of really cool experiences, but the mainstays, I didn't have a lane into those, or maybe I did, but I wasn't going to sacrifice like my lifestyle to do it. So, to be able to take control of your own future in a way, right? That's why people kind of get into business sometimes, right? So there was some of that behind it, but we had a lot of really cool people that helped, and good athletes, and Maddox did some, a bunch of stuff with us, and the brand supported us, the Alliance and Wakeboard Mag, and just didn't work out.
So I have a question. You guys signed Phil Sovin at some point.
Yeah.
I gotta know, what was the Phil Sovin contract?
It was expensive. We talked about that for a long time. We got to a point, and this is like you just don't have, like, you have a strategy, but like when you start shooting from the hip, like it can get
Go
weird.
sideways a little bit.
Yeah, and I'd known Phil since he was a little kid, right? Like I went and rode at his house, you know, I helped him on stuff. Like he was a bane in my existence, you know, at certain points in my career, right? His brother filmed together, but he was doing well, and we saw an opportunity to try to take some of the boat market. It was mainly a North American play, so we're like, hey, okay, we're all on cable, but this cable thing was not doing super well. It
Want some more volume maybe in North America.
Yeah, and we were struggling to get in. And at that time, these bigger brands, like, it's business. Like, they had the ability to just float all your rental gear, right? We'll give you all your rental gear, but you got to buy our product. And it's like, that's not a secret. So we can't give away 100 setups. Like, are you nuts? And life jackets, and you know, so we were just getting kneecapped in the U.S., and then we were dealing with some of the Europe problems, right? And missing their seasons, and orders are getting less. And well, let's, you know, I'm a boat rider. Like, we have a lot of talented athletes, but they don't have the representation in North America. People don't know Lior. They don't know Dominic. They don't know these guys, even though they're amazing athletes. Yeah. So I don't know how we started talking with Phil, but like somehow an opportunity came up, and we're like, let's go for it. It was a roll of the dice, right? And you know, he did so well. He made so much money. You know, so he got involved on he did get involved on a investor level at some point towards the end. Again, I was a minority. I was just there trying to like push the brand in, you know, and try to like shake hands and sell.
Make some sales.
So I didn't get too involved in the deal, in the specifics, but yeah, it was expensive.
Very expensive. I was imagining,
especially at the time, right? I don't even know where he ended up, quite frankly. I think he's
pretty sure that was it. He's a lawyer now, but I think
I think he went to school after.
Was it.
Yeah. So, but that was between him and my partner, and I don't know where they landed, but yeah. he took some wind out of our sails financially. and if you go back to the beginning of the podcast, he rode camber, and he was miserable on that board, dude.
Did Control have a camber board?
We had a camber board.
Oh, you guys did? I did not know that.
We were technically, and don't quote me, and somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong, but I think we were first on the camber. And that's not really something we should brag about.
I was going to say.
Anyway, I mean, we're first by like a month or two, you know, like everybody was kind of.
The idea was there.
Yeah. So we came out with Phil on it, and he hated it, which of course he did. Like, it was terrible. It's a stupid board. So yeah, poor Phil.
So I recently saw some Control boards for sale on the house.
Yep.
Is that kind of like the end of this situation? Yeah,
that was news to me too. So I saw, like, a couple of years ago, I saw our Instagram was active. I was like, what the heck's... So I hit up Brad. I was like, dude, did you know, like...
Who's logged in right now?
Yeah, what's going on? And I mean, to dissolve a company is like hectic, right? And you got to do what you can do. You got molds, you got the brand name, you got trademark, like all this stuff. So I think what happened was the house basically, which is a monster in the...
It's an online retailer. For those who don't know.
Especially in
boards,
the snow.
Everything they got.
Yeah,
huge.
They're up in Minnesota. They're backed by some guys out of like Sweden or Norway or something. But anyway, apparently they bought the rights to the brand. They bought some of the molds, and it's like no pun intended, it's like their in-house water sports brand.
Yeah.
So they just, the brand is strong. Like it's not corny, from my perspective. But so I connected with one of their guys over there and got some stuff. We were going to try to like pump them some footage, and then, business is crazy, and I got a pontoon boat, so
I rode behind a pontoon boat not but a month ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the same, is it?
I had fun.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you had fun.
If you go and do it every day, no, it's not the same. But like I was doing, back one, switch back one, front three, switch, just like messing around.
You're getting in the air.
Not very high.
Well, I mean, it's easy to rotate when you got a skinny stance. So
there you go.
Yeah. So it lives over there. I think it's still there.
I tried to pull up briefly before this, and I mean, there's some boards from earlier model years. I don't really know how
they rebranded some of them, but they kept what was the Supreme.
Yeah.
They kept my boat shape, which was it was a version of the same shape I rode forever.
Yeah.
It was just a good fast board you can ride on wake. I didn't like 3-stage rockers. This was a continuous, but yeah. So they kept like 2 or 3 of those, and those must have been the molds that he offed, and so it's all in house, and
Control lives on.
It lives on. So yeah, I mean, that's cool. I don't have anything to do with it, it's totally fine by me, dude.
Those days are gone.
It's not for me.
Speaking of boat riding, cable riding, we got a last Patreon question from Fise, and he's saying, as you've been an athlete in boat and cable wakeboarding, do you have any ideas on how the industries can kind of link the two sports together and use the synergies of both of them?
Stop selling boats for $400,000. I mean, it's insane. Like to me, it's sad. It's sad that, and this is just the world we live in now, right? Like let's not just take it out on boat companies, because I mean, they're selling them like they can't keep them, right?
They make them because they sell them.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a business, right? This isn't like, and they do great things to support, the sport and athletes, but quite frankly, they're there to sell boats. They're not there to.
They're not philanthropy companies.
Yeah. So, and it's a different world, right? Like, so long-winded answer to his question is, I don't think you do. Like I was somebody who rode rails, boat, cable. Those were 3 different types of cultures, 3 different worlds, completely different buyers, completely different avatars,
different cultures. Yeah.
And I think, embrace that. Cable it's cable. Like, it's not rail riding. I don't care what anybody says. That's like you're riding plastic sidewalks. Like, it's a great place to have fun. But hip hopping and TikToking and twisting and spinning, like we did it to be funny. They're doing it to be serious now. Like, let that be that, and let winchers and that, like, let's go do NAR stuff and risk our lives, which I don't advise now. I used to do it. You're not getting paid enough to risk your life, but let that be that. Let core be core, and let boat be boat. Like, just be different and own it. Yeah. I don't think it needs to be the same, right? We're not selling boat boards on cable. We're not selling cable boards on boat, right? You've got guys who, flip flop, but I don't think you should.
Let them be their own thing.
Yeah, and I mean,
and embrace it.
What is boat wakeboarding anymore? Like, the barrier to entry is way too steep. You look at your family buyer of a boat that, a G23 or equivalent, and who can afford that, right? Like, maybe if I do well, I can afford one of those before I'm 50. So if I'm 50, 60 years old buying a boat, my kid's a teenager. They're getting into it way too late, right? There's a couple kids that were, 5-year-olds who are insane right now on cable, right? Like, that's its own thing. Like, let them grow up through that. And if they want to try other stuff, great. But like, it's going the way of wake surfing and, less risk, it's more chill.
That's just lifestyle though.
Like, mom can do it, dad can do it, grandma can do it, and the 3-year-old can do it, right? Versus like wakeboarding, like I'm not kidding. Like, my short-term memory's atrocious because I used to go out and open toe bindings and try railies and catch a toe edge behind an Malibu F3 where the wake's, 8 inches tall and get smoked. And like, kids aren't doing that today, at least not as many.
Yeah.
Like, not even 1%, I imagine. So yeah, I mean, again, long-winded answer, but that's my opinion. I think, like, keep them separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not like
It's all wakeboarding.
it's all wakeboarding,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's not wakeboarding. Cable boarding is not wake. There's no wake. It's a kicker and some sidewalks.
Yeah.
You know, and some like $200,000.
You got to see some new park setups these days.
I would
There are
have.
some dialed in
I'm
parks.
putting off a tone of
You're old
animosity.
man yelling at clouds right now. a little bit.
I'm Clint
Come
Eastwood
on.
right now, sitting on my front porch. You know, like just crunchy, but like yeah, I think embrace that. Let it be that. And Voss, he's awesome,
Yeah.
and his park is so rad, and what he's doing there, I think he's doing such a good job. And just like that was why I loved Europe and gravitated towards those events too, because they were those events. They weren't trying to be anything else, right? They weren't trying to be something to everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Lean into what you actually are and
Yeah.
just keep going down that.
yeah, and that goes to everything, right? Like if you're picking a path, go do that path, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to be everything to everybody. Just be what you are, and then, you know.
Yeah, I've had the weird thoughts on the perceived barrier to entry when it comes to boats, and like I get obviously the $400,000, all these super expensive boats,
And
they're the best for
fuel.
wakeboarding. Fuel's all expensive. I get that, but like I don't know. I'm thinking about snowboarding in the Midwest versus snowboarding out west, and like I'm not going to draw a lot of parallels because these are two totally different industries, and I totally
Yeah.
understand that. But like snowboarding is marketed as fun. I have fun on a 300-foot hill in Michigan or Minnesota,
Yeah.
but the dudes out west, probably having more fun objectively than I am. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm having more fun. But like
Well, you seen the lines lately? Trying to get on a lift?
skiers,
west?
skis.
But yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, obviously the mountain is better. The conditions are better.
It is.
Everything's better.
it is.
But like, I can have more fun on this tiny mountain with these small rails. So it's like, is there a way you can bring that parallel into wakeboarding somehow back again? Probably not. Maybe not. I don't know. What I'm talking about the boat side of things.
Yeah.
But like I'm just thinking like an old 210 that you can get for what, 45 grand or whatever to the family. Like how do you market that, I guess, is the whole
Right.
thing I'm trying to get at, where it's like it's still super fun on the 210
It is.
or
It
whatever
is.
that boat is. You don't need the G.
You don't need a G.
So I don't know how you market that. Is
You
the
don't-
whole thing.
Yeah, you don't need it. I think, let me go back to 1999, 2000, whatever. Why did I ride cable? Because I could get in my car, drive to the park
Yeah.
by myself. Nobody had to meet me there.
Don't need a spotter. Don't need a
Don't need a spotter.
nothing.
Go stand in line. Don't have to talk to anybody, and just go have the time of my life by myself. Conversely, there's a bunch of people there. Great. Boat was a mission. Always. And I love boat. Like, I want a wakeboard boat today. But, like, if I want to take my family out, like, it's a production,
Yeah.
right? And from up north, like, your friends all had to meet you somewhere. Somebody had to have a boat. Y'all had to bring gas, right? And we got to, like, get out on the lake.
It's more conditions based. If it's super windy,
Yeah.
with the cable, you'll probably be all right.
It's just access, right? Like
Yeah.
snowboarding, there's more access. Skateboarding, there's more access. I would love to see people, and this is a perception. Maybe it's the same energy. I don't know. I'm not in it. I'm not like a supporter of the proactively supporting the industry or anything. I just went a different direction, but there was a different energy. I don't know if amateur contests exist anymore, but the INT, like
don't
local
really.
stuff,
That's-
like
yeah.
that was a big move, and you get groups of people who, like, people love boating, right? And you get all these kids going out in the boat and having a good time, and like 2 or 3 of them would actually take it, like to another level. And, I just think like Europe they've got crazy rules around boats on their lakes, right? So there's a barrier there, over there. And over here, it's, it's easy in Florida. It's easy kind of easy in Georgia and like all these southern states, but there's not that many lakes.
Yeah.
And then you have seasonal. I mean, it's just so many variables. And it's just a different world now.
Totally different.
I think, people are still buying boats. I don't know where these people are getting money, but there's a lot of boats being sold. I don't know the metrics. I don't know like what it was back then to now. Clearly they're doing well.
I would imagine during the COVID years, the boat brands sold more boats than they'd ever sold before.
Yeah, you couldn't keep them.
Yeah.
Right?
Or at least they made more money because they're more expensive.
Well, and they were marking them up because there's just no access to them. But how many wakeboarders are there in boats? I'd love to see those metrics, right? Like, what are they selling more of today? I'm seeing these surfing kids making like 2006 money in surfing, which is just bizarre to me. But, again, grumpy old guy.
It's how the industry and all the sports ebbs and flows and moves up and down. And
It's a journey, right? Like
Yeah.
it's seasons, and let it be what it is today.
You're not going to control it.
We're not bringing it back. You're not going to control it. That's for damn sure.
I'd say we hit some random questions before we wrap this up. So
Yeah.
these are kind of, I mean, not rapid fire, but answer them how you think. What's your favorite feature you've ever hit on a wakeboard?
That's a loaded question. I mean, favorite could be fun, or like impact on like two sides. Like I did this crazy kink rail in California, that a buddy set up, and that was like fun as in a feather in the hat. Like check that box.
Yeah.
Like the sketchiest rail probably I've ever seen hit. Not that there weren't plenty of sketchy things, and nowadays kids are doing crazy stuff, but like that was a unique opportunity that had to have the right conditions, and that was a hero moment. I loved gap stuff. I just loved it. I ate that stuff up when Parks was doing it, and Shane and Colin and Ruck, and that's the first exposure to it. We watched it in snowboarding, skateboarding stuff. I loved that, like being in the air for a long time.
Yeah.
I loved the like degree of if you just caught your toe, like transfer stuff. I ate that stuff up, and then so I liked those transfer rails. Where you could do something and then lock in and then get off the rail. So you're kind of the best of both worlds. I think those were my most fun. And there's like 10 different lines you could take.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. What's the best scorpion you've ever had?
The two worst ones that you never saw which I have footage. I'll find it. My buddy Adam's got it. Was the very first rail I ever tried at OWC in like 2000. Winter, full concussion, woke up swimming down underwater, like motor tower, edged out, full extension, toe edge, like scorpion, knocked out. He's got footage, man. I wish I had it to bring to you. And he'll probably send it, or I can get it. But there's footage of him filming me. Like they had these showers, right? That after you take a hot shower, like outside because it's so cold. And I'm standing there, and I'm so concussed that like I forgot I had bought board shorts that day. So I looked down and I noticed I'm wearing board shorts I didn't know I had, and like it was poor. Like didn't have money. Like I didn't have $35 to spend on board shorts, and I bought board shorts. And I like the words that came out as my girlfriend at the time was like, she's gonna be so pissed because we're like barely making rent, like struggle the bus. But like that was probably the gnarliest because that's probably why I don't have a memory today. And I think I tried one when Scott was coaching me. I got smoked on like a back edge on a mute mob or something. So yeah.
All right. Front edge or back edge if you had to pick?
Front edge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Consensus is front edge on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say the biggest win you've ever had was? Or the one that meant the most to you?
Biggest win?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'll probably go a little more 30,000 feet. It's not any individual moment. It was leaving. It was getting into the real world and getting out of it and having the like that. Nobody coaches you for that. Nobody prepares you for like playing for 20 years to being an adult, and nobody gives two shits. Like I'm not Kelly Slater. I'm not Tony Hawk. I'm not, I think even you could go talk to Scott or Gator or anybody like that. Even like we just never reached that level. So when you leave, there's no like, here's how you transition out, and that's hard. But I think the biggest win is having being able to live this kind of life that only 1% of 1% gets to live. Doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you got to do it. You got to play with your friends for 20 years. You got to make new friends. You got to travel the world. You got to excel at something you were passionate about, and then leave and realize, like, you, at least in my experience, I didn't enjoy the ride, and like understand that now I have that wisdom and I can take that forward in life, and I can build that into my new experiences and my kids and all that. I think that to me is the biggest win, because it was like the biggest takeaway from that experience.
Yeah.
Like, you could go into like contests and travels and all that stuff, and like it's the whole journey, right? And just being able to look back on that and go, wow, that was cool. That was cool. And, you know, kind of a bummer I didn't like realize it at the time, but how can I create a world? How could I mentor people? How could I mentor my kids or anybody to like just remember? So the kids nowadays who are doing this and are struggling, or just like, you know, we're always trying to make our way, but like, I think kids are smart, more aware nowadays than we were back then. And I'm just speaking from what I see, but like, just enjoy it, you know, like, be here, be present. Like, tomorrow's not going to be today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Like, just, if you're there, enjoy it, live it, you know, realize that you're like living the dream.
Yeah, I feel like people get older and they're like, well, those were the days. If you're in those were the days,
Yeah.
try and, you know, pull out a little bit and be like, realize, you know,
Like,
these
no,
are those days.
Like, now is the day. This sitting here right now is all that matters.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever I do next, or whatever I did yesterday, you know, it's done. Right. How cool is that? And,
Live in the present. Huge.
yeah, live in the present. And guess what? Like, people like Garrett, like people that we didn't hang out a ton, but you know, how many people I talk to in DMs on Instagram, like every single day all over the world because of that experience.
Yeah.
You know, how rad, and get to see them and their journeys. And I mean, that's the biggest win.
Huge. I mean, I did not expect it to go that way, but I think that's really cool to hear.
Talking to a business guy now, right?
Yeah,
So,
true. Yeah. Before we wrap this up, I was wondering, we kind of storied your whole career here, but if you could tell 21-year-old Keith Lidberg one thing, would you say anything to him? I mean, obviously, other than live in the moment, kind of realize.
Yeah, I kind of just said it, right? Like,
it?
It's all going to be okay. Like, you don't have anything to prove.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have anybody to impress. Live your truth, live your reality, and just like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Like, cause like I said, I was ambitious. I'm wired pretty intense, and I'm aware of that now, but like, you know, I think there's a lot of, you know, kids these days, and I had kids that came in and were trying so desperately hard, and you're there and you're like, dude, just slow your roll, just do your thing, ride, get better, you'll be fine. But like, if you don't make it, trust me, like, I got problems, you know, like, just chill.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy it. You know, be nice to people. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't like compare yourself. Like, we're all out here just trying to enjoy ourselves and have a good time. And, you know, if you make some money and get to do things, great, and be happy for other people for being successful. And, you know, I wish I would have done more of that, because, you know, I'm sure I've got guys that I rubbed wrong at one time or another, because I was just like, you're just like so hungry to like make it. And you're like, you freaking made it, dude. Like, you're getting paid to just hang out. Yeah. What'd you do the last 5 days? You went downtown and partied with like all your dudes like you used to watch on movies. Like, what are you stressed about?
Yeah.
You know? So that would be the communication to 21. Just chill the frick out, have some fun, and, you know, make the most of those friendships, you know.
That's huge. I think that'll be good to hear for some of these young cats.
I
young
hope
pups
so.
Coming up.
They're probably
with their skinny stances hitting sidewalk rails and
kooks.
TikTok. All over the place.
I'm kidding, man. Do you? Don't worry about what this old guy says, you know.
All right. I mean, before we wrap this up, is there anybody you want to thank or anything else, you know, you want to touch on here?
No, I mean, like I said, I think nobody in particular, but I think anybody that's, you know, from the old world, you know, just know, like, thank you to everybody that we bumped into, all those experiences, all those fun times, no matter what, how intense or unintense it was. I've got hundreds of people that I was able to hang out with, and people that took me in, took care of me overseas, locally too, like so many good friends here and experiences. And I think just thanks for letting me be a part of it. And I'm proud of everybody that did what they did too. And I wish I would have said that more back when we were able to hang out with each other every day. You get older, you don't get to see people as often, maybe you get to chat in DMs, and that's kind of the extent of it. And the list is too long. I don't want to single.
See, that's a good move. I always say that's a good move. You keep it broad, or you go with like a little bit of family here and there. But if you start listing off people, it's like,
and I mean, listen, like I could say thanks to all the girlfriends I had for dealing with like a guy who was just like a dickhead, so there's that lane. Family, of course, like all they did was say, what are you going to do when you actually grow up, but thanks for putting up with my shit. Friends, bartenders, contests organizers, WWA, freaking like dealing with all my protests and bullshit and whining.
How many protests do you think you had?
I wasn't like Phil holds that title all day long. Let's be real. But like, I had my fair share, but I would like to think they were valid. And I'll tell you, I had a like pretty good ratio of this. If I protested,
your success rate was decent.
Oh yeah. Okay. I would say like it was upwards 80-90%.
Oh, well then you're in the clear then.
Yeah.
You're valid. You're throwing the challenge flag, but you get it back for the second half.
Yeah. Why do you think I'm in sales now? And then, hey, it was never a protest against another human being. So I rubbed some, I was a dick, but I still love all those guys. Whether they like me or not, maybe after this they will. I still love all of you. There's no single person that I don't like.
Not a single one. You hear that? Not a single one out
Not
there.
a single one. Period.
Love it. Well, thanks a ton for coming on. This is a great chat. I had a blast.
No, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
Congrats on the podcast. I think this is amazing what you're doing, and it's nice to meet you. And keep up the good work. And
absolutely, man.
I'll log into Patreon. I'll throw some however that works.
It's $100 a month for you.
Okay.
So, $200.
You do loans?
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll put you on a payment program.
I'm trying to pay groceries, dude. I got kids.
It's hard out here. You got to shop at Aldi now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that a ton. That's awesome. And thanks for coming on. This podcast is nothing without the guests. So appreciate everybody coming on. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks to all the Patreon subscribers as well. Your guys' support really helps keep this going. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to rate 5 stars. And if you like this podcast, share it with somebody. That really helps out a ton. So thanks everyone tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.